All right, ladies and gentlemen, I guess I am live right now. And I am so happy to see my audience on the backstage to open this brilliant event that actually we've been kind of preparing for a few months now. We have brilliant speakers. We have brilliant topics. I'm so excited to actually hear and see what's gonna happen. And once we have last preparations here, this is my pleasure and this is my honor to announce, ladies and gentlemen, UI UX Global Summit 2025 by Geekle is live just now. Welcome. I'm so happy to see here everyone. Some people actually are joining us every year, year by year. I see familiar nicknames on the chat, and it's an honor for me that you guys are coming back and trusting us to deliver the uh, deepest insights of this market. I would say because after reviewing these topics today, I feel like this is real stuff. This is real knowledge that you most probably can't find on YouTube or whatever, because what is difference between Geekle events and other platforms is that we actually gathering not content creators, not Udemy teachers, which are great guys, nothing against them, but we are finding die-hard coders, hands-on specialists who actually deals with this kind of problems or innovations every day, and they deliver real stuff like best practices, the lessons learned, how to use those tools, especially AI tools, more efficient. And that's kind of what we are trying to deliver here. So let me tell you about our event. But first, we have a tradition, and you guys who are not the first time here, you know about that. We write in chat where we are from. Right now, I'm in Nice, in France, and please let us know you are with us. Write something in chat saying hello, your city, town, country, room. I don't know, whatever you want to say hello, and also feel free to shoot there your socials, link to your social profiles, because we're here for networking too. So yeah, and my advice, I always advise that to go to the event website and follow each and every speaker on their socials, because these guys know real stuff and they share on their socials. So yeah, let's go down to probably today's topics. I love them, and the first one uh, is all about scenario alignment canvas. Stop making journey maps and personas complete with scenario alignment canvas. That's bold statement actually, but well, let's hear that out. Designing accessible and scalable UX for diverse platform from desktop to VR. Cool. Reactive iOS architecture for scalable apps. More kind of technical, but I think we'll have nice takeouts for designers too. AI that simplifies design to code. Well, that's a hot topic actually, and I'm happy to hear something AI related even for this first date. Then we go to lightweight apps, and then we wrap up with human AI loop, rethinking personalization and accessibility in UX. Let me just check real quick the what we have in our in our chat. Oh my god, thank you very much. I see lots of people are responding here, and let me read it. Malik from Tunis, hello. Hello from Malta. Hello, Vivet from Tunisia. Also Norway. I'm from Italy and work in Pirelli. If those Pirelli like my tires on my car, that's cool, man. And good morning from Texas. No, Central Texas. It's supposed to be like night over there. How is it possible? Anyway, thank you for letting us know that you're here. Hi from Netherlands. Hi from Montenegro, Europe. For sure, Montenegro is Europe, of course. Hello from London, Miami. Again, Miami. Again from Texas. Guys, do you actually sleep sometimes at night? Wow. Hello, everyone from our speaker. And hello. It's 5 a.m. Well, yeah, that's not midnight. That's a great news. So, thank you very much. Keep saying you are here. It's so exciting for me to see I'm not alone here, and actually we have uh, the big audience here. And actually, for online events, normally we have 80% of people watching us on recordings. So I'm so excited to have a live audience today. Yeah, let me tell you how it works for newbies who first time with us. So today is UI UX day. It's free for all. We have 2 blogs and 2 Q&A sessions today. So tomorrow is AI day. So it's again UI UX design, but mostly AI talks. And if you still don't have ticket for the day two of or AI day, you can easily buy those tickets using this discount from Geekle for everyone who is attending live. Just say promo code live. It's very tiny uh, message here in down here, but you can use this live. Okay. So yeah, for tomorrow we are waiting for next topics. Embracing the AI revolution in design. Okay, how AI can help transition from 9 to 5 to solopreneur. That's a great take. Actually, I know that lots of freelancers are trying to get in-house into in-house teams and then back from there and then back and forth. What AI can change in this space? So that's even curious for me. Integrating AI experience in enterprise products, ChatGPT hallucinations, UI, no, and UX design. What's new about that? From pixels to intelligence, elevating UX with AI, design operations, and industry spanning insights. Next one is human centered AI, designing for trust and transparency. Next is bridging digital divide, how AI can help make healthcare websites accessible for aging people, right? And then we'll talk about most dangerous future and wrapping up with design and emotions, insight, and AI with data, which is great. And it's not just pretty charts. So after this summit, as always, if you have paid tickets, you will have certificates, you will have access to recordings, and everyone who since we let me just share this screen. Actually, we started this AI navigator um, platform. So after this event, if even you don't have any tickets, you can join this platform. And yeah, just a second. Yeah, you can go over here. It's for subscription. You can go over here and find all the sessions we had about UI UX design. So just subscribe and watch those sessions and learn with us. So, yep, I guess this is it. Just write your questions in this chat, or if you're watching on YouTube, just in YouTube comments. And probably, yes, we have a few upcoming events like Node.js, Global Summit, Vue.js, and the Software Architecture Summit, and of course, CTO Global Summit. Whatever you think worth to be shared with your colleagues, please help us promote those events. Anyway, thank you very much for your patience to my this long intro. And let me just check one more time, my chat, and yeah, we're good to go. Let me announce our first speaker, Jen, with the topic "Stop Making Journey Maps and Personas, complete with Scenario Alignment Canvas instead." Let's go.
So much for joining. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am excited to be sharing an approach to exploring the goal that your users are trying to achieve by using the Scenario Alignment Canvas, or SAC for short. We have a lot to cover, so I'm going to jump right in. Here's the agenda for today. I'm going to talk a little bit about personas and how they are the same and different from the Scenario Alignment Canvas workshop. I'm going to give you some context as to why the SAC exists. I'm going to walk you through the pieces of it and why the SAC is valuable. And I'm going to talk about how to facilitate the workshop and what you should do after you conduct this workshop. But before I talk about the Scenario Alignment Canvas, I want to talk about personas. Ooh, personas. I hope you are at least familiar with personas. Maybe you're building them and using them in your current UX work. Maybe you love them because they bring empathy to your team. Maybe you don't love personas. Personas are representations and generalizations of a cluster of your target users who exhibit similar attitudes, goals, and behaviors. They're human-like snapshots of relevant and meaningful commonalities in your customer groups. And finally, they're based on qualitative user research. A lot of times, personas contain irrelevant information to help your team make design decisions. Just because two people are the same age or even have the same job role, that doesn't mean they share all the same motivations and goals. Also, personas are often not really based on research. They're often put together by the team based on things the team thinks are the person's goals and motivations and pain points. Let's face it, that research, if it's done well, it actually takes time. And some teams simply don't have the patience or the time for that valuable research to be conducted. I want to switch gears a little bit and take another look at other factors that teams use to inform features and products. First, you have the preference tabs. You shouldn't make design decisions based on one person's preferences. And second, you have market segments. Often those contain that generic demographic information, and that's not really helpful to inform design decisions and features. Also, there's proto-personas. That's the quick personas that act like a starting point, and they're not backed up by proper research. And finally, there is the proper UX persona, which is crafted based on qualitative interviews and user research. So that brings me to two major issues. One, personas are often too high in level or too generic to help designers make design decisions. And two, honestly, personas take a lot of time and effort to research and build. So how can we address these different concerns? How might we bring the data down to earth a little bit to be more of a level of personas, but make them less generic and have them not take weeks or months to build a deliverable? And that's where the scenario alignment canvas, or the SAC, was born. By creating the SAC, I'm trying to address the need for speed, the right altitude for design decisions, and getting the team to focus on user needs. So, how can we have a reference point that is not too generic and full of stereotypes, that the team can point to as like the collective knowledge, can be done in about an hour or two? How can we surface additional research opportunities? So, what inspired me to build the SAC? What are the pain points I have and my design team has when it comes to creating personas? Thinking about that got me inspired to create the SAC. The scenario alignment canvas acts as a starting point for the team. It's kind of like a kickoff to understand the user's goals and why they are trying to accomplish it. It's a place for the team to start collecting knowledge, and it's the beginning of really aligning around the user. We don't need to talk about those irrelevant demographics that often creep into personas. Filling in the scenario alignment canvas is a lot faster than conducting qualitative research. I'll give you that. You can complete this with your team in like an hour or two. I'm not saying this is a replacement for proper research-informed personas. No, I am not saying that. I say this is a starting point. Also, the data collected in the SAC workshop is the foundation of what you would put in a proto-persona. It has goals, motivations, needs, tasks, pain points. So you're already on the right track. And finally, the secret sauce is that while you're conducting this workshop, you're going to get the team to surface areas where there might be gaps in knowledge, thus research opportunities. I'll go into more of that a bit later. So I keep talking about the scenario alignment canvas. So let's take a quick look at it. Basically, the canvas has 5 parts: the scenario, the user's goals and motivations, their needs and tasks, their pain points, and finally, what does the team want to learn more about through research? So let's start from the basics. What is this scenario alignment canvas thing? This is a workshop activity where you steer the team away from focusing on technology or solutions and really explore the goals, motivations, needs that a user has when trying to do a thing. User experience. So let me define this SAC, or scenario alignment canvas. First, scenario. That is the person trying to do a thing. This is their goal. You might even say this is the problem the team is trying to solve. Then alignment. And this is sort of like a kickoff document to get your team to discuss and align around the user trying to do a thing. Then canvas, which is having one place to collect the team's data. And here's what the real SAC template looks like in a digital whiteboard. Let's talk about what a scenario is. Like I mentioned before, scenario is a brief story talking about what the user is trying to accomplish. It is their goal. If you want to think of it from the product perspective, that's the problem the product team is trying to solve for the user. A scenario focuses on a user's goals, motivations, needs, tasks, and pain points. And these are the topics that your team's going to explore in a SAC workshop. Filling in the SAC aligns the team around the user. It's the right level of detail to help inform design decisions. It's not so high and generic that the team doesn't know how to apply the data to designs. This is focused directly on what the person is trying to do, kind of similar to jobs to be done. And this is the level of altitude where good design decisions are born. Finally, it's not so much about the user using our products or services. I mean, it could be, but the beauty of the SAC is that it's fundamentally device and product agnostic. It's about a person doing a thing. The purpose of the SAC Like I said, it's kind of like a kickoff document. You get the team thinking about a user doing a thing. It lets you get ahead of product decisions and keep the team focused on the user needs. It's a way to tap into our subject matter experts. You probably have some smart folks on your team, and you should learn from them as a starting point. And you can use the SAC to get that data out of those SMEs heads and into one place by filling in the canvas. Then, we're not done. We're not going to just let everybody barf out their assumptions and call it a day. No. This is your chance to question the data that comes up on the canvas. Determine if there are things the team could investigate further to get the team closer to confidence with their design decisions. This is the secret sauce of the scenario alignment canvas. And this is how completing the canvas can help your team, but also it can build out a future research plan. So I mentioned that secret sauce, right, of the scenario alignment canvas. So let's talk about that. As you go through the canvas, people are going to populate it with their assumptions and things that they think are true. And you know what? That's okay. So as people fill in the canvas, you, as the facilitator, you're going to be identifying topics you think might be assumptions or gaps in the team's knowledge. What you're also doing, beside gathering the team's knowledge, is finding topics that you could be doing research on. So here are some things to keep in mind while people are filling in the canvas and you're reading what they're writing. Are some assumptions good research opportunities to validate or disprove? Are there gaps in the team's knowledge? Therefore, these are good research opportunities. Are there topics that come up in the discussion that the team simply, they're not confident about? Great. You have tapped into the secret sauce of the scenario alignment canvas. You are trying to find future research opportunities to learn more. So the bottom line of the scenario alignment canvas is it's really fast. It can be completed by your team in about an hour or two. It's the right level of altitude to help you make design decisions. It's getting all that info out of your team's head and into one reference point. And it's a way to get the team to focus on the user. Now, let's dive a little bit deeper into each piece of the scenario alignment canvas, or SAC. Again, the canvas has 5 parts: the scenario, the goal and motivations of the user, their needs and tasks, their pain points, and finally, what does the team want to learn more about through research? The first section of the canvas is the scenario. This is the brief story that captures the relevant information about the user and the goal that they are trying to accomplish. The scenario is a short story capturing what the user is trying to accomplish and any other specific details that differentiate the scenario from another. One thing I want to make sure that we understand: the goal is the thing the user is trying to achieve. The scenario is the story that talks about the user's goal. It's a very brief story, and it also includes some specific criteria that make the scenario worth exploring as a team. So let's do a deep dive into how to write a scenario. Some ways you can come up with a goal for the scenario could be a feature the team is thinking about, a persistent problem for the user that you want to research further, something you think the team has wrong assumptions about, or when the team is not putting the user first in a solution. But just keep it simple. You don't want there to be so much information that the team feels overwhelmed or forgets important details. Focus on the key components that sets the user goal apart. A big part of this exercise is to align the team and explore why that user is trying to do that thing. Too often our teams don't really think of the root causes of a user's problem or their motivations. And this is an opportunity to do just that. So let's break the scenario down a little bit. And here's an example. A user has heard that getting a credit card can help them build their credit. They are already a customer at the bank, so they're familiar with our online banking system. This is their first credit card, and they don't know the process of actually how to get a credit card. So, what's relevant for this user in this scenario? Well, they're already a customer, so we don't need to talk about going through the onboarding process. And since they have accounts at the bank, they're already familiar with our online banking system. We don't have to orient them to that as well. So let's talk about things that aren't relevant and therefore are not here. So we talked about things that are too high in altitude to make design decisions, things like age and other demographics. Hey, people in their 50s and 60s could be getting their first credit card. So age is not really relevant to this scenario. But also, like how many years they've been with the bank, that doesn't really matter when it comes to this particular scenario either. So finally, let's look at the scenario. What are some factors that make this unique? Well, they want to get a credit card to build credit. So there may be specific credit cards that are better for people who are trying to build up their credit. And they need help. They have a low understanding of the process of how to get a credit card. So there are design opportunities that could be considered for this scenario. That's what they should be thinking about. The goal is what the user is trying to accomplish. Again, the goal is expressed by a written scenario and we just went through. Usually it's just one major thing, but it could also surface some sub goals related to the main goal, kind of like jobs to be done. To be clear, you're going to write that scenario with your product partner and make sure that you get that buy-in before you have a workshop around it. So the goals and motivations is where we talk about those things from the user's point of view. I have some guiding questions, prompts, as you would say, to get the people thinking deeper about their goals and motivations. But I encourage you to come up with other different questions if these are not specific enough for the problem that you are focusing on. So this section is to really get the team thinking about what the user is trying to do, which is the goals, and why the user is trying to do it, which is the motivation. I get it. Sometimes needs, goals, motivations, they can seem quite similar, but there really are nuances that make them different. And I really want your team to devote that time to deeply think about these different aspects. Needs are quite simply what the user needs to achieve a goal. It might be a task, but it might not. For example, a need might be the need to feel confident about their decision to get a credit card. Well, what are some tasks a user might do to feel more confident about doing that? See the difference? Again, there are a few initial questions for this to spark the creative juices, these deep dive prompt questions, but feel free to craft your own. This is why I'd recommend you pair up with a UX buddy before the workshop, trying out the scenario and these prompt questions so that you can see if they are really relevant to your particular project. Next is pain points. I think this is pretty obvious. This is about challenges and the problems the user is having when they are trying to achieve their goal. And finally, along the bottom, there is the want to learn more section. And this is where you're gathering research questions that come up throughout the workshop. What did the team discover they have some gaps in knowledge about? Where does the team feel less confident? And therefore, we should investigate further. What did the team have assumptions about? And we should probably do some research to validate those. So down here, this is where you gather opportunities for research. And then later, after the workshop, you prioritize those and build out future research plans. It's that secret sauce, remember? To go a bit further in this want to learn more section, it has two functions. This is where you bring down the research opportunities from the canvas above as you've gone through discussing those sections. And this is where you have the team capture research questions. There might be other questions that come to mind as the team works through the workshop. But don't lose the opportunity to capture those. And this is where you would put those as they come up in conversations. So to be clear, this want to learn more section, this is the fourth and last box you have the team to fill in. First, you go through the goals and motivation section. Have the team fill that in, have some discussion around that, indicate what might be further research opportunities, copy those down. Then you do the same for needs and tasks. And then you have them fill the pain point section in. And last, you have the team think if there are any other questions that come up in our discussion today, and let them put some additional questions at the bottom. Now, let's talk about what to do in a workshop. How do we actually fill in this scenario alignment canvas? Before the workshop, you're going to work with your product partner to define the goal and write the scenario. You can also work with your PM or UX buddy to review the scenario and to craft any deep dive questions that you might want to ask the team. Use your PM and your UX buddy to also test the canvas before going live in the workshop. It can surface hiccups that might come up. And finally, make sure you have a note taker to capture what is said during the discussion portion of the workshop. Trust me on this. Great stuff comes out of the discussion that might not be captured on the canvas. So make sure you have somebody to take notes while you're leading the workshop. So here's how the workshop actually plays out. You do one section at a time. You start with the goals and motivations box. You read the scenario. You read the goal and the probing questions. Point out the probing questions. Point out that they're at the top of the canvas if you forget. Give the team 3 to 5 minutes to fill in the canvas in silence. This is key. We're not having anyone talking at this point. So while the team is filling in the stickies, you, the facilitator, reviews the stickies that you want to discuss, and you put a black border around them to help you remember them. I'll go a little bit more into detail on that in a bit. So while the team is filling in the stickies, and you put a black border around the things you want to revisit, and after they fill in the stickies, you spend about 8 to 10 minutes discussing what you, as the facilitator, finds interesting and you want to learn more about. In other words, that might be good research opportunities. This is not the time where you ask your team to shout out what they think is important and interesting. And the reason for that is because you are trying to determine which stickies could be good research opportunities. So you're going to probe a bit deeper on specific topics. And then after you're done, you can also open it up to the group to see if they have any other things they'd want to talk about. And again, I'll go into how you determine these stickies that you outline you want to deep dive into in a minute. And one note about discussion time. I'll say 8 to 10 minutes. It's pretty short. So you might want to extend that discussion time like to 15 to 20 minutes per section. It just kind of depends how chatty your team is and how meaty the topics are. Just make sure you plan for that in advance and make the workshop longer initially. Finally, based on the discussion, you and your note taker, you copy those research opportunities down in the want to learn more box at the bottom. You do this goals and motivation sections. Then you do this for the needs and tasks section, one section at a time. So for the needs and tasks, you take 3 to 5 minutes for the team to fill in that section in silence. You identify the key stickies you want to discuss. While they're filling that in, you put that black border around them, and then you spend 8 to 10 minutes, maybe more, discussing the sticky that you put the black border around. Then after you've done the needs and tasks, you copy down what are good research opportunities in that want to learn more box at the bottom. And you do this process one more time for the pain points. Let's revisit this want to learn more section because it's really important. Remember, it has 2 functions. One is to bring down those research opportunities from those 3 boxes from above, the yellow ones here. And you also allow the team to capture any additional questions they have. And that's what these green ones signify. You wrap up the whole workshop by giving the team a few minutes, maybe 3 to 5 minutes, to fill in this section with anything else that comes to mind that they may want to learn more about. And that, my friends, is how you conduct a scenario alignment canvas workshop. I want to revisit that secret sauce of the SAC, is that surfacing those golden research opportunities. Yes, folks, there are going to be assumptions that come out of this workshop. We've seen assumptions creep into work before, right? So let's talk about how we bring those out and make those research opportunities. The key here is that you have created a safe space, a no judgment zone. That way people won't feel defensive if you talk about assumptions. I know it can be a touchy topic. You do this at the beginning of the workshop when you read through the instructions and you set the tone and the guidelines for the whole workshop. Remind your team that we're here to learn and explore opportunities. Again, this is really the secret sauce of the workshop. You are creating a safe space to collect knowledge, even if it is assumptions. And assumptions are okay because those are opportunities to learn more. So while the team is filling in the sections of the canvas in silence for that 3 to 5 minutes, you and your note taker are scanning those stickies to look for things that sound like an assumption, might not have supporting research or evidence, gaps in knowledge or competence, or something that's really interesting or relevant to the scenario that you want to get more clarity around. Basically, you're on the hunt for good research opportunities. That's half the reason why you're conducting this workshop in the first place, to be honest. You don't have to be alone in surfacing those research opportunities. You can call in group and ask, hey, are any of these statements here, do you feel like they might be an assumption or we could do some further research on these? After you establish the safe space, then you can have a discussion about these stickies that you put that black border around. But remember, you have to make it feel like a neutral zone. As a facilitator, you're making it neutral. So you can use any of the following questions to dig deeper into understanding the validity and the evidence supporting that stuff written on the stickies. Here are some examples of how to lead the discussion about those few key stickies that you want to learn more about, or that you think are assumptions or good research opportunities. You can say things like, do you mind if I ask a few questions to better understand this? How do we know this? Do we have any data that backs this up? That's an interesting insight. What data or experiences have led us to that? Would it be helpful if we explore this further? You can also use the classic interview technique. Tell me more about this. No, you're not going to ask all of these questions. I mean, I'm just showing you some options here. Ask different ones so you don't sound like the robot. So don't ask them all, but don't keep asking the same one all the time. Vary it up a little bit. And to be clear, you're going to do this for those 3 main boxes: the goals and motivations, the needs and tasks, and the pain points. These are the questions that are guiding your discussion portion, that 8 to 10 minute time where you're kind of exploring things you're not certain about and could lead to a future research plan. So just pick whichever of these prompts work best for you and feel most natural. Okay, so what do we do after the workshop? So the fun does not end with the workshop, folks. What you do is you share a summary of the workshop with the team. You can do it in just a written word summary doc. Do it soon, within 24 hours of the workshop. Or you can kind of capture highlights on the digital whiteboard you've been working with on the side. Later after the workshop, you would prioritize those research opportunities that you captured in that want to learn more box. You don't need to prioritize those within the workshop. You can, but I would recommend that your researchers do that on the side or at a different point. Also, the data you collect on the canvas is actually a great start for a proto persona. I have created a proto persona based on the knowledge that I got from this activity. A proto persona is a great way to summarize the work that the team did. So let me wrap up with a few parting thoughts. The SAC captures the data that's in a proto UX persona: the goals, motivations, needs, tasks, and pain points. But The scenario alignment canvas is not a replacement for a well-researched UX persona. However, it's a great starting point to get your team aligned around a user's goal. The value of conducting a SAC workshop is it's like a kickoff, aligning your team around a person trying to accomplish a goal, trying to do a thing. And finally, remember that secret sauce of the canvas is that you are surfacing assumptions and gaps in knowledge from the team. And those gaps in knowledge and those assumptions might turn into golden research opportunities. So hopefully now you have a strong foundation on how you might conduct a scenario alignment workshop with your team on your next project. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you have enjoyed the talk. I would love to connect with you. Please find me on LinkedIn and happy to connect in the future. Have a great day. Bye.
Yeah, that was great, and we really enjoyed your talk, Jen. Thank you very much. Without further ado, we are moving to the next speaker, Pallavi, with topic designing accessible and scalable UX for diverse platforms, from desktop to VR. Let's go.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Pallavi Bora, and I am a senior UX UI designer with nearly 9 years of experience working across visual, product, and immersive design. Today, I'm excited to talk to you about designing accessible and scalable UX for diverse platforms. This includes everything from desktop to VR. So, as our digital ecosystems expand, designing for one device or one platform just isn't enough, right? So, let's explore how can we ensure that our design remains usable, inclusive, and future ready across a rapidly evolving product landscape. So, the agenda for the overview agenda for today's presentation is covering a cross-platform challenge, the core UX principles that remain constant across different devices, the platform-specific considerations for various devices, the accessibility as a design foundation, building and scalable design systems. Then there's testing and validation strategies. And we'll also cover that how can we future-proof our designs. So moving on to the first aspect of it, let's start with context. So the digital landscape has shifted from isolated devices into an interconnected ecosystem. So users expect seamless transitions between desktop at work, mobile, commuting, to VR, to AR, in leisure or for learning environments. Still, while they are moving around devices or moving from one system to another, they want it to be really smooth and flowing. An average household has kind of found to have 20 connected devices. Our users more fluidly move from desktop to mobile to VR, and often within the same task flow. Like they might be doing something on the desktop for which they might also want to use the mobile, and likewise. So to add to this growing adoption of VR and tech, with devices like Meta Quest 3 crossing like 10 million sales, we see a future with immersive computing is very normalized. So what's the challenge here? Ensuring our user experiences stays coherent and inclusive across all these touch points. So that means that we should be considering about not just the screen size and orientation, but also about the input methods, the device capabilities, and even the user context. Like whether they are sitting at a desk or standing in VR space, the design's decisions now must count for the ecosystem, continuity, and also persistent for user sessions. And that should be synchronized for all devices, right? So next, I'd like to talk about a few key challenges that come across platforms, right? The key challenges for cross platforms. So designers today must jingle multiple input methods. So from varying, the input methods are kind of not just limited, and they are multiple. It can be mouse, keyboard, touch, voice, gesture, and so on. So each platform has its own like screen ratios, screen sizes, aspect ratios, and that comes in a bit as limitation. So for instance, hover states do not exist on touch screens, like hover state which we usually design for a keyboard or like something with desktop or laptops. We do not design for touch screens or even for VR. For VR we might, but not for touch screens for sure. So, not every VR user can actually rely on visual cues alone. Like in virtual reality, you really need to have a very different kind of understanding as to how you are giving cues to the user. So these kind of variations to build across platform and being aware of what kind of UX while maintaining the product libraries. So accessibility too shifts from one kind of a platform to another, and it depends on how we are building the system. So how do we ensure that consistency without forcing uniformity? That's what we are unpacking today, right? So for example, design on desktop may leverage indexing, drop downs, while on mobile, it must be accommodated into an auto compute or minimal typing kind of feature. And on VR, it might be really like entirely gaze based, or on the other hand, it might be like a design navigational instructions, micro interactions. Like VR really needs to have minimized interactions, not how we do it for desktop. So that is how it varies from one device to another, and those things bring in some challenges. Next, I'd like to talk about the core UX principles. So the first one, of course, is consistency. Consistency is definitely the key. So let's talk about consistency because it is what brings in trust. When users see familiar UI patterns and languages across platforms, they are less likely to feel lost or frustrated. That is what kind of brings them like an understanding or sense of trust to them. So this involves more than just using the same color scheme. It's more than that. It's also about ensuring the functionality and the clarity of navigation and visual continuity that adapts gracefully. Maintaining core interactions, like when the primary actions are placed, helps reinforce a user's mental model for the product. So it's about how continuity can be maintained across different platforms and not just about the color palette or the themes that we are using. So it's also about how the UX remains consistent. So to achieve this, what we can do is to define interaction models at a higher level. And ours, like how we progress is to translate them into a very native UI convictions. Component libraries with shared logic design tokens can ensure consistency while still allowing customization according to the platforms. So there definitely needs to be kind of a component library, like even all the design tokens that we create. So that definitely is the basic, but they still should be customization based on the platform we are designing for. The next UX principle would be user-centered focus, right? So as we all know that we need to design for users and not for platforms. So everything aside, above all, the users are our key people. Like users is what we need to design for. So start with the user, understand their goals, pain points, and device behavior as well. So for example, a feature that is used primarily on mobile might require streamlining on VR or desktop, right? If it's primarily on mobile, it might not be the same on VR or desktop. So the design should flow naturally around user needs and not force them to adapt to the platform. If a user needs a certain kind of uh, feature on a certain product, so it should be available on that rather than forcing them to use a particular device to be able to access that feature. So it should be from the user's perspective rather than from the device perspective. And again, the word empathy comes in place where empathy is the main important tool. We need to think from the user's mindset rather than from the device or the kind of product comes first. So user definitely comes first. So this would mean incorporating behavioral analytics to understand the platform usage patterns and our users dropping off when switching from desktop to like from mobiles to desktop, or are VR sessions shorter or why. So just to understand whether the analytics should be kind of judged. So these insights should directly influence where prioritization and UI simplification strategies across platforms. So analytics is also where we can understand the user behavior and make decisions. So that's a bit about user being at the center of our focus. The next principle is mental models. So mental models is what? It is about, like, the mental models matter and they shape expectations. So if users know how something works on mobile, they expect it to function similarly elsewhere, right? So if they are able to kind of filter something on mobile, they would try the same way on desktop as well. So cross-platform design represents that expectations while introducing similarity across native to each platform. So, for example, while they're on mobile, they might be swiping to delete items. On desktop, they might expect to right click from the menu. So, the goal is to maintain the conceptual alignment even when the physical interactions differ. So they still should have an option to delete. That shouldn't go. So, that is the whole idea. If they are able to do something on a desktop, they should be able to do the same thing on a mobile as well. That should not differ. There are, of course, kind of exceptions, but the main thing remains that how the user has trained themselves to work on a particular platform, and that kind of brings in how they should they have a mental model that they've built for a platform, and that should remain consistent while they're using it across different devices. So I'd like to move to one of the key aspects of this presentation where platform specific, we'll be talking about platform specific considerations. So let's break down platform specific considerations and talk about desktop. Now, desktop users often want to multitask. They benefit from precision input, complex interfaces, and shortcuts. And designers can use information density, hover states, and large kind of viewpoints and provide depth in detail on desktops. But this also would mean that we need to ensure the keyboard accessibility and allowing flexible layouts to adjust to window sizes. So think of dashboards, productivity tools, or enterprise platforms. These thrive on rich data, right? So customizable interfaces as well. So designers should kind of consider progressive disclosure, keep essential functions up front, but also allow power users to dive deeper. So shortcuts like drag and drop, all these things are quite possible on desktops, which enhance the UX for desktop as well. So that's a bit about desktop. Let's move on to mobile. So what does mobile do? Mobile prioritizes simplicity and clarity. What we do not have on desktop, it definitely has a lot of information, but it's not as simple as we can see it on mobile. So with limited screen space, because the screen space is quite small as compared to desktop or any other device, we want to have a precise information for users. So there are touch targets. Like if we have seen how the devices are designed, like products are designed, there are specific areas on the mobile which are focused for touch targets, and like minimum moving of thumbs. So the way, like how the ergonomics of the mobile design works is that the area how, for example, wherever a thumb goes, like that is the area where the touch buttons are mostly placed. So what I'd like to add here is that mobile design also allows location or sensor based personalizations. So creating that kind of creates opportunity for context aware features, right? And leveraging from device capabilities like GPS on biometric authentication or camera. So our UX must factor in sensor driven interactions. So I'm not sure of how many of you have things like Okta verification on your devices or Microsoft Authenticator. So those kind of things are really kind of helpful with the mobile devices. Um, so I'd also like to say on Android, you may need to accommodate like custom navigation models, while on iOS, like bottom tabs are standard. So considering UI libraries like material design or human interface guidelines as references for, like can be used as references for building native feeling mobile experiences. So that is kind of a very good starting point if somebody wants to build a very good experience. So the guidelines that are already there, which we can use for building an experience. So that's a bit about mobile. I'd like to move to AR and VR. So now designing for AR and VR is a very different kind of experience as to compared to a 2D mobile or desktop as per se. So what is different? It is 3D. The first thing comes in 3D. It's a spatial design considerations. We need to consider that it has to have understanding that it should minimize like motion sickness. So the UI has stable positioning and allows ergonomics interaction. Limited field of view. Like if the person is standing here, the field of view should be limited to a very like small amount of space. It shouldn't be like 3D. Doesn't mean that we can. So traditional UI patterns must be reimagined, keeping the idea that it's three-dimensional with audio and haptic cues, ensuring accessibility, because the accessibility for a VR space and a normal 2D desktop or mobile is very different and varied from each other. So placing elements within the user's comfort zone is what I was talking about is very important. So that is one thing that needs to be really kept in mind while designing for VR or even AR for that matter. Physical comfort and fatigue is also one thing that arises. So we need to kind of give cues after a certain point of time just to remind them that they might take their headsets off and take a break if the session is going long and things like that. So these are some or less mostly the considerations with AR and VR. I'd like to move forward and talk about accessibility as a foundation. So accessibility is not optional. Universal design ensures that your product is usable by widest possible audiences, including those with permanent or temporary disabilities. So, according to the WCAG guidelines, it should be perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. And these things should be applied early on. It shouldn't be like thought after the product has been designed. This should be the base of each product. Now, how does this benefit? It cautions, it creates like caution and help in noisy environments, like the keyboard navigation aids power users, and readable fonts supports all users. So one key strategy is to shift being a QA task to a design system priority. It shouldn't be the last thing, but the first thing. You should think with accessibility in mind. So, like, even these days on Figma or many design tools that we use, we have um, very easy ways to check accessibility. So that should be kept in mind while we design, as that has become like that is supposed to be the most important thing while a product gets designed. So that is the universal kind of design principles. So other than that, I'd also like to talk about platform specific accessibility. So each platform has a distinct kind of need. So desktop might be ensuring that the screen reader, like it's compatible with reading, like keyboard navigation and those kind of things are kept in mind. The keyboard based navigation, the screen reader compatibility, and kind of logical tab orders are all in good order. On mobile, it can be that the touch targets are correctly placed. There is reduced motion while you're using your mobile. There is voice control for mobile users. In VR, it's very different from mostly everything. So the types, so how do you really input things if you need? So those kind of things should be there. They should be like you should be avoiding vestibular triggers. There should be audio cues given. So those kind of things need to be considered. So we should be specific to the device that we are designing when accessibility is kind of concerned. Um, I'd like to move to the next which is scalable design systems. So while we are designing a product, it is really important to build a design system. Why? Because every product needs to be, as we spoke about it in the beginning, needs to be really, really across platforms and compatible across different devices and different platforms. So for that, we need a very good design system. So what is atomic design? Like, what is a scalable design system? While talking about scalable design systems, what is an atomic design? Design systems help maintain consistency and speed, like as we start. So let's start with atomic design. So the smallest, what do we mean by it, is that the smallest usable components that can help us scale a interface, like for example, buttons, um, like even a drop down, any kind of thing, tabs should be created in a design system where the core elements are themed per platform. There should be design tokens created for color, spacing, typography as visual design. So this approach would help us to definitely save time and bring in consistency. Like I'm sure you'll all agree to it because that is the core of building a product and a very basic thing that we do as a UX UI designer. So I won't take too long on here, but I like to just say that while using a design system, we should just keep in mind that it should just be designed for one platform, or one device. It should be designed for multiple usage of device, which is how it will help to bring consistency and scalability across platforms and devices. Moving forward, I would want to talk a bit about responsive versus adaptive. So, what is responsive and adaptive design? Like, responsive design would allow us to adjust our layout fluidity. Like, you must have seen a lot of websites where some things just get stuck, even if you're trying to make the screen resolution lesser or more. Responsive is when it automatically changes when we're trying to make lesser or more. Like it is created for different layouts. It's created for different screen sizes. Adaptive design actually tailors to specific breakout points. So that is how the basic difference comes in. Like the best is how we can create a hybrid approach for responsive in design, to create a hybrid kind of an approach where it is responsive and adaptive as how, like, whatever works best for the platform. So for instance, a navigation drawer might be persistent for desktop and collapsible on mobile, and as a gesture triggered and VR. So example, so for uh, navigation on desktop can be a drawer, but on mobile it can be a collapsible and just a gesture in VR. So that is one of the examples I may quote here. So yeah, that's a bit about responsive versus adaptive design systems. Moving forward, I'd like to talk about documentation. So documentation in design system is really important, and it's kind of also the backbone. Each component that we create should be defined, and how it works and where it works and how it behaves. So for example, if we've created a drop down, so does it slide once it's clicked? Does it pops up? Does it just comes like a hover? So these are how we would like to document things. So this is just an example. But how we create things and how they're supposed to be used is really important to document, which is what this is about. So good documentation should also ensure that teams across locations and roles are aligned. Like everybody should be aware of how it's documented, where it's documented. Everybody should be aware of it and like kind of accessible to it. So to include accessibility requirements is also very important while we are creating design systems and documenting it. So for example, if while creating a design system, we keep the accessibility guidelines in mind, that becomes really good and easy to build the product further. So yeah, that's a bit about like documentation bit and making make it guide and philosophical, and to ensure the design unity is also very important. So moving further, I'd like to talk about testing and validation in like product and how UX benefits from it. So one thing that is really important is testing on real products, because real devices matter. That is what we call it. So how we test on real products and keeping cross platform consistency is how we want to test. So like if we are testing something on mobile, we should also be testing the same product on desktop. So that doesn't really end while testing it on one device. It should be tested on device like multiple devices that it's created for. And testing is definitely not guesswork. Real devices, real people is what really helps to test. So, like, create a device lab if possible when it comes to testing. So, there should be multiple devices, depends on how the product team works and also how the company works. But if possible, if they have a device lab where they are using it for testing environments and everything, that is the best way to go about it. Testing for accessibility is also very important. So it shouldn't, so accessibility kinds of goes hand in hand everywhere. It's about creating it through the design system, creating it through the product, and of course testing it as well. So each platform introduces unique variables, unique kind of bugs. So all those, like even like node sizes, gesture zones. So testing only for stimulators can mask these like real world friction points. So for instance, if you're testing a VR application on a headset like a Quest 3, can uncover comfort or with like visibility issues, and that just won't show up in a Unity emulator. So also consider network conditions like using Wi-Fi to observe how the UI responds. Like this gives you a true measure of user experience less than real condition, like less than ideal conditions. So that's a bit about how you should be testing across different devices. And I also like I've talked a bit about it, but how we'd like to talk about cross-platform flows. So don't just test for isolated screens, like test for full cross-platform flows, like not just one particular feature, but how it's flowing from one platform to another. So observe how users are switching from mobile to desktop to single sessions. Use inclusive recruitment, including people with disabilities and using assistive tech. So, real world testing gives us really good context and empathy that analytics really can't. So, design handoff points carefully is that if a user starts a task on a mobile and finishes on a desktop, so how is the state perceived? In this session, we should clearly see where is the confusion or where is the repetition. So we should see like the full story. If we are starting on mobile, if they are ending on desktop, what is going on where? What is the problem where? So that's a like bit about how we should test not just on devices but across platforms from one device to another and so on. One more thing that I'd like to add on testing and validation is metrics that matter. So we should, even without saying that, do it just this way, we should keep a track of things like completion rates, error times, satisfaction. So there should be kind of a guideline that we kind of create towards the beginning of our testing plans and all that, which should be kept in mind. So analyzing time on task and efficiency gaps is kind of really important. So tracking the error rates and where is the user kind of having a difficulty is equally essentially important. So collecting the specific satisfaction scores is what we'd like to do. So also tracking accessibility specific metrics such as like keyboard tap frequency, screen reader accuracy, all these things really help. So with kind of testing and validation, things which need to be done is firstly doing it with real devices, real users. Secondly, doing it across platform. And thirdly, doing it with a good metric set and a good pattern set to create a proper um, feedback out of the testings. Right. So I'd like to move further and doing a little bit of discussion of how do we future proof our design. To future proof our design, we would want to create designs for not just one or two, but multiple kinds of interfaces. So, what that means is as design is moving forward and our technologies are being created, um, even we must be kind of aware of it and create according to the need. So, for example, the design systems that we create can be flexible and it can kind of accommodate, if needed, a different device as and how required. So, the CMSs can be adaptable, and like it shouldn't be very rigid, is what I'd like to say. So, that is more or less one of the key things here. And also with AI coming in place, we should kind of build systems if we are able to do that, keeping in mind that AI driven system can also be taken forward. So if that is something that can be done, it should be done. Moving on to future proofing our design, there's one more important thing is continuous learning. So regular competitive analysis, like doing research and just knowing about your competitors on a regular basis, is also very important, because products keep evolving and so must our understanding of it be. So analyzing competitors, conducting UX research, knowing about accessibilities, guidelines of the present date, not just what we've read in the past and created the product, but also seeing if it's accessible according to the guidelines and on the day. So, tracking how platform specific trends affect the user behavior and creating feedback loops between research, design, and development. We must regularly conduct usability sessions and just collect feedback and do A/B testing if possible. We must track how platform devices are, like um, how the products are working on these platforms, heat maps, rage clicks, all those kind of analytics would help in making something better. So that's a bit about it. At the end, I'd just like to say that prioritize user goals, not just platform specifics. Build scalable design systems with platform specific optimizations. Make accessibility fundamental, not an afterthought. Test across platforms with real users in real contexts. And ensure consistency while respecting platform conventions and future needs. So thank you. That was all of my presentation. I'm happy to take questions and would happy to be answering them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pallavi, for this nice talk. Lots of questions, and I see more coming in the chat. And we are moving to our next speaker, Rutul, with Reactive iOS architecture for scalable apps. Guys, please keep writing your questions in the chat. It encourages us a lot, knowing that you are here with us, listening and getting something out of it. Thank you very much, and let's dive there.
Welcome everyone. I am Rutul Desai, a mobile architect and engineering leader at Kunai. Over the past few years, I have had the privilege of helping organizations like Capital One to scale their mobile platforms. Today, I want to explore how adopting reactive architecture in iOS can empower us to create apps that are not just scalable but also maintainable and deeply user focused. I'll guide you through concepts, case studies, platform patterns, and code examples. By the end, I hope you'll walk away with practical strategies to adopt in your teams. Let me share a bit about my background. I've spent the last several years leading mobile engineering initiatives at Kunai, where we have partnered with major financial clients like Capital One. This experience has shaped my perspective on scalable architecture and user experience. I believe deeply in systems that are resilient yet flexible, code that enables designers and engineers to move fast without sacrificing quality or user trust. Imagine opening your banking app after a deposit and not seeing the updated balance instantly. How frustrating would that be? That exact moment is where reactive architecture shines. Scalability challenge is a real one in this scenario. Today's mobile apps are real-time, high-stakes platforms, especially in sectors like finance, healthcare, and commerce. But our traditional architectures, especially MVC, tend to become very fragile as our code base grows. They weren't built to handle continuous streams of live data, complex user flows, or concurrent operations. That's the core problem that we are here to solve. Reactive programming flips how we think about app logic. Instead of pushing data through imperative code, we describe how the UI should react to streams of state over time. It's very predictable and not at all fragile. The streams of states is given the most important instead of the callbacks and manual updates. This leads to code that's more predictable and easy to reason about. Async flows, often the bane of mobile developers, are now first class citizens, complete with compatibility and error handling. Ever hit a bug because the two async calls updated the UI out of order? Reactive architecture helps eliminate that kind of chaos. At Capital One, we were tasked with building a mobile app that millions rely on daily to manage their finances. Their demands were very high: real time transaction feeds, instant alerts, personalized offers, and most critically, trust. It also kept the onus on us, developers, to track their day to day work, where what do they like, what do they don't like, and preferably set our UI according to that. So performance and reliability weren't optional; they were foundational. This is like building the cockpit dashboard of an airplane. You can't mislead or you can't afford misleading or lagging information. Giving a deep dive into the Capital One architecture goals, the first goal is obvious: security requirement is the most. Those were like military grade security protocols, offline capabilities, so that the users could check reflected in the balances in airplane mode as well. They should be given real time notifications and a streamlined onboarding experience that felt seamless. Each of these had major architectural implications, and reactive principles helped us deliver. Picture a user trying to sign up during a subway ride. Offline first capabilities ensured that onboarding didn't break midway. So, the solutions to such a high demanding case study would be a reactive architecture. Our solutions centered around streams like transactions, balances, offers, and alerts flowed as continuous data streams. We built logic around combined publishers that handle network and persistence layers reactively. Even in spotty network conditions, users could interact with an responsive UI that synced as soon as connectivity returned. Think of your app like a stock ticker. You don't want yesterday's prices, you want now. That's the way that we programmed the app. The core principles of reactive architecture that drove our way of building app was the first is obvious: unidirectional data flow eliminates state ambiguity. Imagine if your GPS showed three different locations because every component has its own state. That's what happens when without a unidirectional flow. We clearly separated business logic from UI logic. We leverage declarative UI with Swift UI, which is very capable. Observability tools helped us track state and performance in real time. And finally, the error handling was first class, not an afterthought. Reactive MVVM became our go-to pattern. Each screen had a view model exposing publishers like transaction list, user status, or error state. The views simply subscribed to this, and updates were automatic. No imperative UI updates were given. This made it trivial to test, scale, and refactor components as the app grew. This is a sample code snippet, as you can see inside the view model. It's the transaction publisher is receiving it on the main dispatch queue. So we are on the main thread, and whenever the update transaction list receives the updated transaction, it updates the UI accordingly. This declarative style reduces bugs and improves developer velocity. Also, there's no need to store state flags or track dependencies as well. Another code snippet that I would like to show you would be of combine with async await. So in this example, as you can see, load balance is being asyncly updated. So it's awaiting whenever the balance publisher is sending its updated balance, and like showing up on the load balance. It allows us to suspend execution until we get a valid balance. This fusion of reactive and structured concurrency gives us the best of both: clean syntax and responsive, stream aware behavior. There were a lot of benefits that were achieved while working at Capital One. By going reactive, we delivered measurable outcomes. Performance had improved. Users felt they could trust the app's speed and accuracy. And our engineering team was able to build and trust new features more quickly. We also saw a noticeable lift in App Store ratings. The segregation of responsibilities and defined modules helped engineering teams to perform better at their work. Developers burnout went down. So that was an overall improvement in the whole culture of the company. So while developing on such a scale, there are a number of pitfalls that cannot be ignored. The first is that the reactive code can get complex if overdone. So as so many teams are working together, if they are not segregated into modules, it's very difficult, and it was a real risk, especially when junior devs try to overuse combine. We countered this by limiting combine to where it provided clear value. So there were clear guidance and limitations to how combine can be used. We adopted it incrementally, starting with specific modules. So from simpler modules to complex ones, they were being adopted incrementally. We also ran internal workshops to bring everyone up to speed. This included KT sections, tech discussions, feedback, PR reviews. Such initiatives increased smoother transition and a stronger team alignment in the company. Looking ahead, we'll see more fusion, AI driven personalization, predictive UIs, and seamless user flows. Swift UI has been dominating in this recent years. Most of the high stakes apps has been using Swift UI in a way or two. The winners would be team that can orchestrate, streams of user and stream data into experiences that feel human, using combine and async weight integration. And also the predictive UIs powered by AI would, just give you what will be next. Imagine an app that updates your dashboard before you even open it, predicting what you want next. That would be the ideal way in which the future would be defined. A few tools we leaned on were Combine Cocoa with Bridges, combined with UIKit. RX Swift still plays a role in legacy apps. Understanding both is a strength. Also, we used Sentry and Firebase Crashlytics for observability. This gave us an edge in responding to any issues that were faced by the users in real time, create a ticket, and work on it instantly. So there were a lot of factors that help in the success of how a Capital One application works with reactive architecture. Final takeaway would be that reactive architecture isn't just a tech strategy, it's a user first philosophy. By designing with streams and change in mind, we are building for a future that's fast, reliable, and personal for the users, because those are the ones which matter the most. Thank you all for your time and attention. It was a pleasure for me to share my two bits on reactive architecture in iOS. And if you'd like to continue the conversation, please connect with me on LinkedIn.
And yep, thank you very much to all our speakers. And now we're moving to the Q&A session. And I see some speakers on my backstage. And welcome, Jen. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Wait a second. And some Yeah, now I see you, Pallavi. Hello, by the way. And Jen, could you please repeat something because probably we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear. That was probably something with my.
Hi, Ed. How are you?
Yeah, doing good. I'm enjoying this conversation. Let's say that's super nice. Happy to have you all here
Likewise.
with our audience. So let's just get started, right? So what what do we have? The first question is to you, Jen. When we talk about needs, is it about client needs or end user needs?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say I'm referring to end user needs because that is what you're exploring when you're doing that workshop. You're trying to somewhat build out the components of what would be in a proto persona, right? So you are talking about that proto persona or that person in that scenario, you're talking about their needs. So that would be the end user.
Thank you very much. Moving to the next one. This to you, Pallavi. You mentioned designing around user intent rather than screen size. Can you walk us through how you identify core user intent across platforms? Oh,
Yep, that's actually a very interesting question.
right.
So, what I'd like to say is that to identify what the core intent of the user is, we want to understand why the user is on that platform. Like, there are multiple, actually, most of the products are created these days for across different platforms. I'd like to quote an example. For example, very common platform like Google Meet. Users come online Google Meet on mobile phone to access it differently, on laptop to access this differently. So just to understand how the users are navigating through different devices, and that of course and that understanding of course varies from having some usability testing from the current user journeys, identify how their tasks is flowing across different platforms, and then coming to a conclusion across as to what platform needs to cater them in what way. And that kind of defines how the platform and how the core intent depends on the platform and what intent does a user has on what different platform. Does that answer that?
Thank you very much. That's kind of deep insights, right?
Yeah.
On users' intentions and behavior. Okay, how do you handle deeply conflicting team assumptions surfaced by SAC if immediate validation isn't possible?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? You sometimes get some clash between people who think they know the answer, they know the user better than anybody else, right? Been here a long time. I know what they need, their needs are, or whatever that might be. Uh, I think a good way that I handle is conflicting assumptions is show me the data.
Mhm.
And this is what usually happens. Silence. Well, I don't have the data. Well, we need the data. That's great. I'm glad you know that. I'm glad you feel very confident, but let's look at the data. I might not be that harsh and say, show me the data. But I will say, oh, great. I'm glad that you know that. And I would love to see the data that we have to support that point of view. I think that's really a nice way to show that we may not have the data exactly. And if we do, great. That's maybe it's a little bit dated. Maybe things have changed since you got that data, or maybe the data was skewed when you gathered it. I don't really know. Maybe it's totally legit, valid data, and we can move forward in the conversation. But that's usually what I will say. Oh, great. Let's see previous studies we've done on this. Let's see what you've documented with the data that we have and how we moved forward in our design decisions. So that's something that I would usually say is let me see the data that supports that point of view.
Sorry, just to add my 5 cents here. Uh, another artificial source of truth of today is ChatGPT or whatever you use, because sometimes I have to actually compete with it in front of my teenage girls. They said, "No, you're wrong. ChatGPT says different. Go and check it out." So now the answer may be, "Okay, well, I asked ChatGPT what user wants," and that's another source of uh, user data or user behavior insights. What do you think about that?
Well, I have a great example, Ed, that I just did. I just did a little experiment asking ChatGPT. I simply asked ChatGPT, create an image of me. And it did what it thought it was of me, and it was a white man. So that's a perfect illustration of, you think ChatGPT produces valid data. I asked it, produce an image of me, and it shot me back a white man. And I'm logged in this with ChatGPT with my Gmail. It has a photograph of me because it has my avatar for my Gmail. So it could have borrowed from that and maybe sent that image back to me, but instead it brought back a man. So I posted this scenario on LinkedIn about, oh, hey, this is what happened when I typed this into ChatGPT, and I had loads of other people respond with different, not just different gender, but just different races or both. So I think if you have a nice illustration of an example where, okay, I think I know what I look like. Here is what I should look like. You're seeing my face, and you ask GPT for the answer, and it provides you a wrong answer. That's just going to shoot down your girl's opinion right there.
Well, my girls are
actually
not
had
that
a
easy
similar
to shut
experience.
up. Yeah. Please go, Palai, please.
Now, I said I actually had a similar experience where you ask something, you get something else. And to that, I'd just like to add that AI is actually just responding in the way that it's fed. So it's not fed accurately, right? It's just been fed. So we really don't know what that data is actually correct or wrong, but there's some data. So to get actual insights, you should be reaching actual users, at least in the field of UX. So that is where I would say that, just reach out to the actual users, not just AI.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we're not there yet, okay? So we still need the user's data and somebody's feeling of the user to actually make it brilliant. But in some point, I guess we'll have those models who actually knows from users, like bunch of users data on different types of like everything, and probably we will actually account on that someday, right? So let's go next. No, for new tech like VR, AR, what's the biggest challenge you see in making it accessible? Wow.
Great question. So honestly, accessibility is a bit of easy when it comes to VR. Why? In terms, like, depends on what kind of accessibility are we trying to talk about. For example, in virtual reality, we do not have to depend on touch or keyboard or anything like that. We can have voice assistants. We can have things like eye navigation and those things like that, which in itself have a lot of like there is a lot of accessibility features added to it. While on the other hand, because it's an immersive environment, we really need to be assured that it is designed in a way where the user is not feeling dizzy. It's not making it them feel little left out. All those things are kind of just being added in terms of getting it right for the accessibility with AR and VR. So depends on what we are kind of creating for the user, and depending on which we need to get the accessibility right.
Thank you very much. Let's move on. And next to Eugen, how do you adopt SAC for mature products and what it takes? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely can use the SAC for mature products. You're really focusing around that scenario, how a user is using that thing, right? What are the circumstances that change to make that scenario unique? So it doesn't have to be a new product. It's actually better with an existing product, because then you can pull from data you've heard, research you've done, that support how that person would be navigating through that scenario.
Moving on. Thank you very much. Yeah, let's do this one. How do you balance the user-centric focus with real-world technical constraints during or after the workshops?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it's true, right? There are usually technical constraints. And I'd say that during the workshop, bring those up, talk about those. Those could be pain points, or those could be tasks, right? Talking about what the user is trying to do when they're trying to meet their goal in this scenario. They could hit all kinds of constraints, and some of those could be technical. So you'd want to talk about those. The user cannot get through the airport properly because they left their phone in the restaurant and now they don't have their ticket, or something like that. I don't know. You would definitely want to be talking about those and discussing those, because your solutions, what you're building, your product may or may not be able to address those technical constraints. So bring those into the conversations. Whether you can do anything about them or not, that's up to your product or service, but they should be brought up. And like I said, generally they're brought up when talking about tasks, the things that they're trying to do to meet that goal, or the pain points, the reasons they can't accomplish that goal is a lot of times because of technical constraints that they're dealing with.
Right. People just talk to each other because we still have this possibility yet. Okay, let's go next to Palade. When designing for many platforms like desktop, mobile, VR, how do you keep the user's main goal clear if each platform works very differently?
Great question. So again, where it all starts is understanding why is the user on that platform. So if the platform does exist already, if we are not designing it from scratch, we would want to understand that what is the user journey like. Like, for example, if somebody is onto a platform for booking an appointment with a doctor, they are probably booking an appointment on their mobile phones, then attending that on a desktop or a laptop, and then giving some feedback back on the mobile. So the user journey for the same product would vary on one device to another. And likewise, the design should also vary in the same form. The mobile should be more easy in terms of booking appointments, giving feedback, and those kind of things, while the desktop should be more compatible to give and understand, like, so for interaction, for having online meetings, and for those kind of things. So depending on what the user is wanting to intend to do on that platform is how it should be defined. And to get that intent right is, of course, how you get user feedback, do user interviews, conduct focus groups. That's how you do it.
Thank you very much. Moving on, Jen, to you. How do you maintain depth with the SAC in the short workshops without oversimplifying critical details like for complex B2B scenarios?
Yeah, I think the best way to get to a deeper level of discussion and exploration is to really have that scenario written tightly. Have it be very specific. It's not just a person who travels through an airport. It is a person who travels through the airport weekly, and therefore, and by themselves, travels very frequently, and they are very familiar with the airport, versus somebody who is a mother or a parent of 4 children, hasn't been through this airport in 3 years, and have different circumstances when they're traveling through that airport, right? Somebody who comes through every week, hasn't checked a bag, knows this airport inside and out, is going to have a different experience than a parent who has 3 or 4 kids in tow and has to feed them, and they've got all their bags, and it's just probably feels a little chaotic. Writing the scenario very specifically will help you get down to the levels of detail and also the levels of design solutions than keeping it broad like a person traveling through the airport. So that's why I would say having a strong scenario and really getting in very specific details that are helpful to the person's problem are the ways to avoid that kind of vague and shallow exploration of what the team thinks are the factors that make up that workshop canvas.
I love stories about 4 kids' mothers, right, in a product. All right. The last question of this Q&A session to you, Paladi, how do you decide when it's better to make an experience almost the same across platforms versus making it very unique to each one?
Quite an interesting one. So depending on what the product is about, like for instance, I go back to saying the same thing. Why is the user using the product? And what does the user want out of it? Like different products serve us differently. So for instance, if there is something which needs to be just a booking platform, right? It needs to just book us a ticket. It should be designed in the similar way. While how I quoted earlier, where we want to have a journey across a different product, from booking us an appointment to attending an appointment to giving us feedback, it needs to be defined in a unique way. How the user journey progresses from one point to another, from where the user picks up, then how they meet the doctor, how they give feedback, come back, align with the doctor, and so on. So, depending on where the user is doing what in their journey, is actually how we define what the goal for the product is.
Thank you very much. So this is it for questions from audience, and I have the last one from me. Imagine, ladies, tomorrow every LLM kind of shut down. They broken. I don't know, some global crisis or whatever. So no AI anymore. How much productivity do you think we'll lose? Like team and personally you. Let's try to think about it. Like we shut down every AI tool for now. Who wants to be first?
I can go first.
Okay.
Well, honestly, I wouldn't say much because we have AI since what, 2 years, maybe 3? But UX has been built for across over 10 years, even productivity in that matter. Everything had existed already. It is just kind of getting added on with a little bit of AI usage or anything else. Everything would still exist. People would just go back to changing their ways of doing things. If you say story writing, creating illustrations, creating whatever they want, like even videos for that matter, what people are doing with AI today, were done in the past as well. And even actually before, like tools like Illustrator, Figma, all these things that were created, prototypes were done on paper, tested on paper, created stuff like that. So everything even existed before AI had an existence of its own. So I don't think anything would go back to there.
Wow. Okay. So what you're saying is kind of AI presence in your professional life is still quite low. Am I right?
It is kind of having its an impact. Like AI does create a little bit of a, what do I call it? A pace to it, adds a little bit of pace. So, for instance, when we are trying to get some information, we get it out of AI, but we do want to check if it's right or wrong. So, even if we are getting it quickly, we do want to cross tally it from the real data. So it's adding to us, but it's not the only thing that we depend on. So that
Right.
is what I come from.
All right. All right. Thank you very much for your input. And Jen, what do you think about it? How much of AI in your professional life?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think that AI, a lot of that is a buzzword, and we used to just call it technology driven, right? Instead of using AI, and now I think technology has been taken over as the buzzword, and now we just call it AI. So it's, to me, it's a hard, like, where does that stop becoming technology and where does that start to become AI? And I think for certain people that I see it, I work with people like this, I know people like this, they do not come up with an answer on their own until they put in ChatGPT first. And for folks like that who cannot exercise original thought or critical thinking or come up with answers on their own, the longer they do behaviors like that, the less they're going to be able to come up with things on the top of their head. They're so reliant upon technology or AI to give them an answer that they can't come up with one on their own. So, depending on how much you use it as a crutch in communication, in speaking for you, I think is where there's a difference between I will move on if AI goes away, and those who are so reliant upon it, they may be halted from moving on quite easily because they've just been using it so much. It's become their default to come up with answers.
Thank you very much. Different opinions on that, actually. Let me take the opposite side for 1 minute. We have left and would say, I am the person. I literally don't remember when I Googled something. No, I always use deep research and just Gemini or ChatGPT. I use both to compare sometimes outcomes, and it augments me now. It doesn't. I don't think it can eliminate my knowledge, my passion, my charisma, my passion to the community, feeling the waves and stuff. But when it augments me with additional ideas, additional angles, I really I feel like I'm more productive and more interesting for people. So yeah, probably I have a different use case or bunch of use cases, right? But still, I really afraid of shutting it down. So I mean, at least I will hope everyone doesn't have it anymore, so we're all still in equal position, right? But if someone has and someone doesn't, or someone has even smarter one than me, oh, that hurts. That I feel pain from that thought. All right, thank you very much for joining us, sharing your energy, your expertise, and answering our questions. Thank you very much, and have a nice
Thank
day.
you for having us.
Thank you.
Bye
Bye.
bye. And yeah, dear audience, we are facing break. After the break, we expect for a few topics on design to code, lightweight apps, and human AI loop. See you after the break. All right, we just had a 15 minutes break and we're back. Dear UI UX community, thank you for being in this audience. And we're moving to our next speaker, Dinesh, with the topic AI simplifies design to code. Let's go.
Hi everyone. I'm Dinesh Besagari, a front-end engineer too at AWS, and today I'll be walking you through the process of how AI simplifies your designing and how it is revolutionizing the design to code process, and especially for the beginners. So whether you are a designer, a developer, or someone who just wants to turn your ideas into the working UI very fast, and this session is for you. So here's a quick look at what we are going to cover today. We will start with the beginners' pain points, the traditional workflows, and the AI enhanced workflows, exploring the leading AI tools, and we'll have a small live demo using UiZart. And I will also share the best practices and the measurable impacts from real use cases. So the beginners pain. So one of the biggest challenges beginners face is to turn your great ideas into working code. So you start off very excited, you sketch out cool interfaces, maybe even you build a mock-up. But when it's time to implement, say in HTML or CSS, everything slows down. So coding takes much longer if you're new, and that delays probably kills your momentum. So, and in fact, so beginners spend 3 to 5 times longer period than experienced devs just to translate a design to something to functional application. And this isn't just about the learning issue. And across the board, nearly 70% of the developers say their iteration cycles are too slow, mostly because they hand off between the design and the development. So these delays lead to missed timelines, stale projects, and a lot of frustration in your teams. And it's not a surprise that many ideas never make it past the design phase. So this is the pain point AI tools are now addressing, and it's what we'll focus on throughout this session. The traditional design to code workflow. So in most development teams today, this is still a very standard process. You design in a tool like a Figma, then you hand off these assets and specs to your developer, and from there on, the developer manually writes the HTML, CSS, or some React code to bring those designs to life. Now, this might sound straightforward, but it's actually a long and often frustrating process. So designers and developers work separately, so which leads to the miscommunication and lots of delays. So designers might not translate perfectly into code, and that results in visual bugs or mismatches in the final product. It's also extremely time consuming, and depending on the complexity of the screen, it could, just building one single page can take days, and multiply with the number of screens and through the application, you are just falling behind your schedule. So this siloed and manual workflow is exactly what AI is starting to challenge, and that's what we'll look at next. So how AI is bridging this gap. So first, AI can now take a rough sketch, like something drawn on a paper, and turn it into the clean, usable wireframes. So that removes the need for detailed design software very early in your process. Second, AI can understand NLP prompts, so natural language prompts. So instead of drawing or designing, you can just type something like, hey, create a dark theme sign up pages with email and password, and boom, the tool will build this UI for you. And third, and most impressively, AI can now generate the actual code for your designs. And like, for example, in HTML, CSS, and React, maybe these could be the production ready components that can be used as a starting point in your real apps. So this allows designers and developers to work in the same flow, iterate faster, and reduce the time from idea phase to the implementation by a huge margin. So let's break this down by the type of tools you will find in the market. First, you will have a Sketch to wireframe plus code tools like USArt. So these are great for early stage ideas. You sketch something by hand or describe it in the text, and the tool gives you the functional wireframes and component code. Next are Figma to code tools like Lookify.ai. So these are more advanced tools, and and it maintains the design fidelity. Meaning, so the code outputs looks exactly like your Figma design. So it's ideal when you already have a very polished design and wants the production ready React or HTML. And finally, there are prompt to Tailwind UI tools like Builder.io and or even ChatGPT. So these generate interface components directly from NLP prompts and can be used for quick prototyping without even requiring any design tools or softwares. And the beauty here is that there's something for every skill level, whether you are a visual thinker, a Figma user, or a developer who prefers the code first. So top tools you can use today. UiZart is perfect for the sketch-based UI generation. It can convert hand-drawn elements into working interfaces and even export a React or HTML code. And it's very beginner-friendly. And Lookify works inside Figma and outputs the clean component-based code in React or React Native or HTML. And it's amazing for preserving the design fidelity and speeding up the front-end development. Builder.io offers a drag and drop interface with AI-powered layout suggestions and code generations. So it supports React, Vue, and other frameworks. And Teleport HQ is more of an end-to-end app builder. You can collaborate with your uh, team, design screens visually, and it's great responsive code with hosting the built-in. It's kind of similar to the Vercel VO. Even it offers the hosting built-in. And Anima is focused on high fidelity code from tools like Figma or Sketch and supports the responsive layouts, component libraries, and the design systems. So now let's bring this to life with a quick demo using UiZart. I will start the demo with entering a small prompt, and UiZart uses AI to generate the responsive UI almost instantly based on the input. Then we can drag and drop components to tweak the layouts or stylings, which may not be visually appealing, and you can try different things out. It's very visual and intuitive, even for the non-developers. And then let's try adding a second screen, maybe a dashboard, and you will see how quickly we can build multi-screen flows just by giving a prompt. Once you are happy with the design, UiZart lets you inspect the code components and even export the code. It could be in React, HTML, or CSS, depends on on your plan of which one to choose. So this shows just how fast you can go from an idea to a working prototype and even extract the real code to kick off your development process. And now let's start with the demo. So now let's bring everything we have discussed to life with a live demonstration of UiZart. So this will showcase how AI can transform a simple idea into a functional UI design in minutes. So we'll begin by creating a project here. So this is the dashboard for UiZart. It has got projects, templates, teams where you can share this, UiZart for them to also contribute. And then there's a brand, learning, and let's start with creating a project. So when you create a project, So you can find various templates uh, in this store. So say you are building a booking application, you can search for booking. So you have got lots of designs here: bus booking, hotel, table, flight booking, web, and many others. So if you want to take a reference of this particular template, you are always good to use this, or maybe you could use this template and enhance it from here. Or the other option, if you want to start developing your own design for your own use case, you can always start generate it with auto designer. So I'll start with this. Okay, now I will provide a prompt for me. um, so I've got this in my notes. So design a mobile app for a fitness tracker with a dashboard, workout log, and the progress chart. Let me also increase the screen size. So I'll continue with this, and here uh, you have got a few options. So the first option is screenshot. Maybe you like a design from a particular place where you wanted to use that as a reference. You take a screenshot of that and you can upload it here, and then you can start building from it. But for this demo, I'm going to use prompt because I want to show you the AI capabilities here. So I'm going to use prompt. I like the dark theme, so I'm going to select dark and generate my project. So this is going to take a while, a few minutes. So let's hang on to that. Most of the times, additional design proposals are quick than the interactive prototypes. So let's give it a few moments. Okay, so you see user developed multiple designs screens here. You can see let me go closer. You have a welcome screen, sign up, a homepage, calendar, statistics, profile, and settings. My god, this is amazing. It took just a few minutes to have this beautiful screens up here. So there are several screens that you can see it here. Each screen is populated with relevant components, providing a solid foundations for our app. So let's customize this screens. For example, maybe I wanted to change this text, your workout to my workout progress. So this is that easy. Or maybe my workout progress. See, that's super easy. It's intuitive for any non-designers, and you can always change the colors, or maybe you wanted to use your brand colors. Use that intuitive interfaces makes these changes. It's straightforward. And next, you can also simulate the interactions between each screen. So it US had brought up with a few interactions by default. So you click on this interact and it shows the interaction from each screens to the other screens. For example, so the welcome screen is taking you to the sign up screen, sign up is taking to you to this profile screen, and it has all these interactions. So you can you can always add interactions. For example, maybe if someone clicks on this profile image, I wanted to take them to the profile screen, so I am going to mark them, attach it to the profile, and when someone clicks on this image, then it starts navigating to the profile screen. So it's super fast, and it's pretty much very easy to follow. And you have screens here where you could see all the screens available in your dashboard right now. So you can always search for it if you want, if you're looking for a particular screen. And maybe I'd say I don't like this image here, so I wanted to add a different image. So you can always start with clicking the pick a different image here. You can use images from Unsplash. You can also always use GIFs, and you can always upload your own images or brand images here, or you have an option to generate these images as well. So I'm going to introduce a very good tool here, Adobe Firefly. So you can always generate very good images from here. So for example, I'm using generate gym workout images, and then I click on generate. So if you like this image, you can always download it. You can upload that image by replacing with the old one. It's that easy. Maybe you wanted to change the text, or maybe you wanted to you need a suggestions here. You can click on suggest. Okay, this had suggested me a very good text. Maybe I want to use this. I'm going to replace this here. See, it's super easy. And next, we can say you wanted to add a different screen. You can always come here, generate a new screen. Probably I'll generate a screen here. Maybe you can always add a description for your new screen, or you can upload a screenshot or upload a wireframe. For example, in this case I'm going to try to upload a screenshot, so for which I'm going to use Mobile to get the different mocks. So I've got some mocks here. Probably I like this. I'm going to download. I'm going to upload a screenshot. It's for mobile, and upload an image. This one. So yeah, so USAID is now taking its moment to design it. So it's going to be ready in a few seconds. There you go. It's ready. So you can place it in the canvas. There you go. So now this is different from the existing screens. So probably what I could do is I will try to select this and modify selection. Follow the color format from other screens. And remember, this is AI, so you cannot expect it to be 100% correct. So it could make some mistakes, maybe, but it's easy, straightforward for you to just drag and drop things, edit, and use your experience or use your creativity to update these to look in the right way that you wanted to have it for your product. Okay, so this is done. I'll say use this in the design. See, it changed its color matching the other screens. You can always remove these if you don't want to have it, but yes. And then you can always edit this name here, say workout plans. So that would be your new screen, and then you can always preview your screens, and you can also play around with the interactions. from one screen to the other. So I'm going to start with this, and users enter these details, and I'm going to click on sign up. It takes me to this screen, and see, it's a workout here. It got me to the calendar, maybe track workout, and it shows all my workout progress here. And then I click on this image, and it took me to this nutrition tracker. So yeah, I mean, this is how you can start editing your or making the interactions to your designs. And handoff. So handoff lets you to export your screens in different formats, say PNGs, PDFs. On at the same time, it also helps you to get the React component codes for each screen. For example, let's say I'm going to select this screen, so you can always export this screen in PNG, JPEG, SVG, and PDF formats. You can always have a React code for this screen and a CSS. So, and you can always select the component, and you get the React code for each of these components. So you just have to copy this and put it in your project, and then run it, and it should be good to go. So it's that easy for you to move from your design phase to your or to get the code and make your designs live. So once you're satisfied, you can export these designs and name in different formats and put the codes and everything into your projects. So, and USR also supports the real-time collaborations. Clicking on share here, you can add your team email or a person whom you think should collaborate to this project. You can assign different roles for them and then invite them. So it's going to the other person will get a notification, and then they can start joining this project, and then they can work on this. Then you can publish this so others can look at these screens, and then you're always you can also embed these into different places, or say website or any other places. So yeah, so this demonstration highlights how USR leverages AI to streamline the design process and making it accessible for both designers and as well as the non-designers. So by converting simple prompts into the functional designs, it accelerates the journey from the concept to the prototype. So while AI tools are powerful, they're not perfect. So and here are the best practices to keep in your mind. First, always refine, polish the AI generated code. Think of it as a draft. So you still want to ensure it meets your quality standards and follow your best practices. And second, review it very carefully, especially for with regards to accessibility and the performance. So check color contrast, keyboard navigation, and responsiveness across your devices. And third, keep learning the fundamentals. HTML, CSS, basic layout principles on using flags, grid are still essential. So AI can accelerate your workflow, but having the right skills or right knowledge lets you make the better decisions and catch mistakes that might miss, and you are ready to catch those. So AI is the starting point, and your expertise is what makes the final result excellent. So to wrap up, here are the three things I want you to remember. First, start using these tools today. Most of them are free to use, and you will be surprised how much time and effort they could save. And second, eliminate the handoff gap. So with tools like USArt and Locify, designers and developers can work together in the same loop, reducing the delays and the confusion between the teams. And third, think of AI as your co-pilot, not your replacement. So it speeds up the routine tasks, so you can focus on the creativity, strategy, and the innovation in your project. The future of UI UX is not just faster, it's smarter. And these tools are here to help you to provide a gateway to that future. So if you are ready to explore, here are some great places to start. USR, Looker, Builder IO, Animo, and ChatGPT. All of these tools offers free trials and trials, so you don't need to commit to anything upfront. Just play around or try different building different screens and see how it feels. The more you use them, the more intuitive they become, and soon you will be able to take these ideas from your head to working UI on just minutes, not even hours or days. So measurable impact of AI design tools. So these tools don't just feel faster, they actually are. So study shows that teams save up to 70% of the time when using AI assisted design tools. That's really huge. And feedback loops get 3 times faster. So instead of back and forth, emails between the designers and developers or maintaining long sprint cycles, so you can iterate them in much faster in real time. And the best of all, designers and developers report more enjoyment in the process, less repetitive work, more time for creativity. And that's what we all want. So, tools that not only make us more productive, but also bring back the fun of building the great experiences. To conclude, yeah, thank you all for being here and for your interest in this exciting shift in the UI UX world. I hope today's session gave you some inspiration and practical tools to explore in your own work. Feel free to reach out if you'd like to continue the conversation or need help picking up the right tools for your use case. And finally, let's build faster, smarter, and more creatively together. And thank you all.
Right, let's build faster, smarter, and more interesting things. Totally with you, bro. Okay, and we're going to our next speaker. Just a sec, let me pull up Sachin. Lightweight apps have a impact. Let's go.
Hope you all are having a great day. Hi everyone. Hope you all are having a great day. I'm Sachin. I work as an Android developer at LinkedIn. I have experience building lightweight apps, be it native or server-driven app or hybrid. The topic which I would like to share with you all today is on lightweight apps. Like, what are these lightweight apps and how do they help users? And how does it help product? And we will also look into how can we build one which helps both users and products at the same time. So how do we build apps with using like minimal resources and its memory footprint being much lower than a regular app? So that's a topic which I would like to discuss with you today. And over to my presentation. So why do we need a light app, right? So let's say I am in traffic, or let's say I am in a crowded area, or I'm transiting in a train where my network connection is very spotty. How can we offer a product to those set of users who can load the features even within the constraints of the network or the resources, right? Or let's say I have a really old device or an Android device which is not up to spec of like a powerful phone. How do I make sure that all the features on my app loads as fast as it should be? And how do we make sure that the users are satisfied with the experience they get on any device spectrum? Or let's say that how do we make sure that the app which you have does not get force skilled in the background so that we can still engage users through push notifications and so on, right? So basically, how do we build an app which is really small and we also make sure that it uses the least resources and we make both users and the product happy at the same time? So to look into that, we have to first see what is a light app, right? So light apps are usually classified as those apps which are like much smaller in size, so typically less than 10 MB in size, so that it's much easy to download from the Play Store or App Store. And it uses like very minimal resources, including RAM and processor, or the cache storage or whatever it be. And it loads very fast. Say you define a threshold on how fast your page should be loaded, right? And then you always meet that threshold irrespective of the network that you are latched on to, whether it can be like 3G or 4G or 5G, or it can be on a Wi-Fi, or it can be on a really slow Wi-Fi. And it uses like very limited network payload, and it's also like very responsive, and it also offers you cached experience when there's no network. So we can consider these as the characteristics for a light app. So what benefit does a light app provide to the users, right? So it's much easier to download, and as the app uses very small memory size, so the likelihood of the users retaining that app in their devices is very high. So it's easy for them to retain, and they have enough space for other apps that we don't take so much space on their phone. And they get much faster experience. And because our page loads very fast. And they will also be use their apps in the cases where the network is not very friendly to them, and they are in a position to actually use their product to almost to the full extent as if they are in a very good network availability area. And it uses like much lesser resources on their phone, so that your OS does not come and complain to you saying, hey, this app is using a lot of your resources and it's time to force skill. So, and what are the product benefits, right? So some product benefits of building a light app is you can improve your app activation funnel, right? So app activation funnel is nothing but, let's say you have an app listed on your Play Store or App Store. So the number of people who see the listing of your app to the number of people who click the download, and the number of people who actually follow up on a download and open the app, to the number of people who actually open the app and sign up or log into the app, to the number of people who actually engage with the app frequently. So this is your funnel. This is how your funnel is going to look like. So let's say your app download is going to take very minimal time, right? So the likelihood of people opening the app and interacting with it is very high. So as per some studies, it shows that the more your APK size is, there is a lesser chance, there's a lesser probability that users are actually going to open the app and sign up with it. So from my experience building Light App, so it has been observed that the lesser app size, the more engagement you get with the users. And the second important benefit is the faster go live time. We will cover this in the later on how do we achieve this. It takes much lesser time to develop features with a Light App, and then you can also be in a situation that we develop only once for all the clients, whether it be on the Android or iOS or web, and users are happy. You get better app rating, which means that you get better organic growth on your app. And another benefit is that given that you might have multiple flavors of your product, one in a light version and one in a full version, so this allows you to do targeted marketing. Say for example, you can expose your light app only to some emerging markets and not to like prime markets where your app it predominantly has a good user base on. So another benefit is the improved member retention, given that the app takes less space and then it does not it uses very less resources, so the likelihood of people using or returning the app is very high. And another benefit is brand partnership. For example, let's say you have a very small sized APK, you can actually talk to the device manufacturers and try to get your apps bundled with their OS, given that it takes almost no size. So we have seen what are the member and the product benefits, right? So how do we build a light app? So I have divided it into 3 ways here. So one is a fully native approach, second a hybrid approach, and third a server-driven UI. In fact, there's also one more way to do it, a fourth way, which I will cover in the next slides. So let's see what all these approaches are. Fully native. So this thing is very clear. So we build a lighter version of our product offering, and we minimize a set of features such a way that the app size is kept minimal, say for example within 10 MB. As you're putting this constraint of keeping your app size very minimal, it means that the number of features that you can build natively is very limited. So you can only offer a subset of your features. But the advantage here is that you get a very slick user experience given everything is built native. And even in a very low network scenario, you can try to show some native content which does not rely on network data. So that's an advantage. And you can also make use of the cache on your native device. So as I said, the main challenge would be like it will be a very difficult decision to choose like what features should be exposed in light versus on the full version, because you are constrained by the size. And it's also very difficult to keep the size in check, because a lot of you will end up needing a lot of dependencies to build it natively, which keeps on growing the app size. And another point here is that the app your feature release velocity is limited by your app release lifecycle. So it depends on how fast you have your app release lifecycle to be. Usually it's around like 1 week or so, we can say. So you cannot have a change today and get it live and have it live to all the users on the same day. So that's sort of impossible. So going to the next approach, which is server driven, right? So in a server driven approach, what happens here is that let's say you build a client that still shows native views, but all your data comes from the server. So what sits on the client? So the data that you get from the server would be like a UI tree, and what client does would be like just parsing this UI tree to dynamically inflate the views on the client side so that you see the native components on the client. So it's something like React Native. So the advantages here is that you get a really fast experience, slick experience of all native views, and your feature iteration velocity is much higher here because you can build features on the server side which can go live on the same day, and you can keep a stable app size. But the challenge here is that that particular stable app size may not be so less, because all your client rendering platform that you need to have this virtual DOM or the UI tree that's going to be returned from the server, that takes up some size and it will have its own dependencies. So you can keep the app at a stable size, but that may not be a small size. And it also means that you are going to send the payload that is sent from the server is also going to have a lot of additional information on how the UI should look like. So which means that you need more bandwidth on the network side, and you also have to do more processing of that data on the client side, which makes that you're going to use more resources. And the architecture is also going to be a bit complex. Not just that, the debugging of any features is also going to be very complex here, because your rendering logic is now split between the server and the client. Let's go to the next approach, hybrid apps. So in case of hybrid apps, what it means is that so you have a mix of both native and server-driven UI. So in this particular case, the advantage is that the core flows that user has to interact with, let's say for example, the splash or the login page. So we build those natively so that whenever a user launches the app, you show the login page almost immediately, right? And you get the time to prefetch other pages while the user is still on the login page or whatever it be, right? So here you get the benefit of quick. You have the benefit of having a quick responsive app, and you can develop once for all clients. You can actually keep your app size in check and to a very limited value. And it also offers you the advantages of doing caching and prefetching. You have much faster release velocity. The main challenge here would be to keep that distinction between the native and web views or the server driven UI views to very minimal so that the user experience is aligned in both use cases. So we will look more into how do we build hybrid apps, and then we'll cover. Before that, we will cover the last one, which is like progressive web apps. So progressive web apps, as you all might know, so you don't have something listed on your app store, but you can do add to home screen or on from your web app if it has service focus enabled, right? So this gives you the advantages of develop once for every client, given that you have browsers which support service focus on all clients. And you can also implement caching and prefetch here. The faster release velocity, all such advantages here. So the disadvantage here are you cannot mix and match with native experience. So you are totally relying on your web app experience. Then the service worker may not be available from all sources. Say, for example, you go to Facebook, and then let's say you have a marketing on Facebook where to use your product. You click on that, it opens in a custom view on Facebook, which does not have service worker, which means that user won't be able to do add to home screen from there, right? So you are limited on the number of sources from which users can actually add a progressive web app to their list of apps, right? And the problem, another problem here is the discoverability. You don't see this in store, right? So which means that your growth is very limited and your marketing potential is also very limited. And another challenge is that not all native features may be easily accessible. Say, for example, the biometrics or even the notifications, right? It might be challenging to implement notification or like schedule notifications, or there has been historically it's noted that the notification receival rate for the progressive web apps is not on par with a native app. So which again drops your sessions. So these are challenges with progressive web apps. So now let's take a deep dive into like the hybrid apps, which we talked about, like how can we build a hybrid app, right? So one such way of building a hybrid app is using web views. So you can use web views or Chrome custom tabs or trusted web activity or whatever in this architecture, and this is just an example on how it can be built, right? So let's assume that you have an Android app, and here we are talking about having a mix of native and web views, right? So you will have a web viewer activity which will be hosting the web view, and in this particular example, so we will be using the service worker. So as I told before, the interactions that we have which uses like which has to be available with no-network or on the initial launch. Say, for example, Splash, the login. So those will be built natively. And the other activities that has to be built natively. So it depends on your product prioritization and the ability to access the native features. Say, for example, let's say you have to do an address book import. So that is best handled in a native activity than a web view activity. because some time ago, accessing the address book was limited to web view. I think it's possible now, but so things like that may not be super accessible for a web view. So those things goes into the native view, right? And the initial interactions like splash or login go to the native view, and all those features that you feel like does not add much to the app size. Let's say it adds only like few KBs to the app size. You can build those natively. You can transition between the web view and the native views as you like. And in the web viewer activity, so what we would have is a service worker, right? So the service worker would essentially maintain caches. So what this would do is that when you try to load, let's say your home page, right, which is built on web app. So you try to fetch the page, and that page comes from your front end server, right? So the service worker will have a primary cache. In the first request, what would happen is that it would see if there is that page present in the primary cache. If it is not present, it will place a network request, and the network request is going to give it the first page, and it's going to update the primary cache as well as the secondary cache. And then let's say you scroll to the page and you reach some point, right? And you navigated to another page and came back. So you load the data from the primary cache so that the index is maintained. At the same time, you also make a request to the network to get the latest data, and you put it in the secondary cache. So this allows us to keep the index as well as get the latest data and put it to the secondary cache as and when needed. And the expiry of these caches can be set as per your product needs. Say for example, I set the expiry of the primary cache as like 2 minutes. So whenever I go back to an already visited page, so it means if it has crossed 2 minutes, then it would take the data that I have in the secondary cache so that the page will already immediately to the user, right? It also means that you try to fetch your pages asynchronously in the background so that you address for the low network or the non-network cases, so that you always get to see some content on your phone from your cache. So similarly, you will also have a backend server for your auth or any other services. Say for example, you have some native views which would rely on this backend server to get the data that you need to present the native views. And in this equation, you can also have your cloud messaging for your notification management. So this is a simple architecture that you can have for a hybrid app, which can help you build a light app and let's say a full-fledged app. Using this architecture, a full-fledged app can be built in under 2 MB in today's scenarios. So a 2 MB app that does almost everything that you have in your product, and also you build it once for all the products. Let's say you have an iOS, Android, and your mobile web and your desktop app, right? So let's say you build a responsive web app which scales on desktop and mobile and on mobile browser, as well as you try to reuse the same for your Android and iOS apps as well. So which is like super responsive, and you use the caching feature, and it's just like 1 or 2 MBs. You get the discoverability from your app stores. So yeah, that's what we are talking about here. So some design considerations that you have to handle while building the light apps. One most important thing is the dependency analysis. So you build different things natively or few pages natively, right? So we have to be very crucial in deciding what dependencies you keep on adding while building those features. So this is critical because whenever you build a feature, you have to build your APK and see how much size the new feature is adding, because you might end up pulling some transitive dependencies which you may not need for your feature. So you have to keep your exclusion list open and to make sure that your app size does not cross some particular size. And as I said, so you have to have a very good discipline and also maintain a threshold on what your page size should be. So for all the pages that are requested from the web app, right? So if you're having a server-side rendering web app, you have to make sure that your page size or the HTML that you get from the server is always less than a particular size, let's say for example 100 KB or 50 KB. So that's some threshold which you will have to keep and always maintain in a well-disciplined manner. The access monitoring, I already told about this. So for each and every commits that you make to your app, you need to have an access monitoring in check so that you always maintain that threshold of your app size. Let's say you say that your app has to be only 1 MB in size. So you have to strictly monitor that how much KB you are adding to your app in each of your commit. Now, another important factor is feature selection, right? So which feature makes sense to be built natively, and and what features make sense to be built on the web app, right? And static assets. This is also an important factor. So you should be well disciplined in maintaining your assets on your device. So you should add your assets of right resolution and your translations for with those only with those values that you where you are actually targeting your app to be, etc., and also make sure you use the right compression techniques so that your app is kept in check, and also make uses of features like dynamic features where you can actually download the additional set of features that you need later after you get the users download the app and probably interact with the app for some time and see if they are responding well to your features, and then see if you can offer them some additional set of features through dynamic features. Then another important factor that you can consider in your design is lazy loading. So if you are limited by your page size to show the features, right? So what you can do is to lazy load some of the parts in the page. Lazy loading here means that okay, you show the first page and then you make an asynchronous call to the network again to fetch some additional data which you would populate on the screen later, so that users get an initial good experience, and you also top up them with some additional data which does not actually interact with their feature usage, right? And other thing is defining the thresholds. We talked about it. The threshold has to be maintained for your app size on each and every commit, your page size on what you're getting from the network, your payload size, and as well as your page load times. So your page load time has to be strictly monitored, and you have to measure your page load time on slow and fast network, whether it be like 3G, 4G, or 5G, or Wi-Fi. So for poor connections and good connection, you have to instrument it separately and monitor your page sizes to make sure that you are offering the right and best experience for your members. So that's all what I wanted to cover about the on building light apps. So as we have already seen, the lightweight apps helps us unlock access to users on like lower end devices and those who have got slow and spotty network, and also tap some potential from the emerging markets where you can do custom segmentation or marketing, and it can significantly boost your activation engagement by reducing the friction in your app activation funnel, and it offers the users with faster and more responsive experiences, and also helps us improve the development velocity and maintaining one single tech stack for all the releases on each of the platform. Thank you everyone for listening to this talk on light apps. Hope this helps everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sachin. And it was deep, technical, but still I learned something new about these light apps. Nice concept, actually. And we probably should pay attention to them, because maybe this is kind of new trend, and as professionals we need to follow trends and know how to deal with them. Anyway, I'm happy to see Gauri on my backstage. Hello, Gauri. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. I actually enjoying this event and guys presenting. Thank you for joining. And where are you right now?
I am based in India, Pune.
Oh, great, great, great. And why did you actually choose this topic? Is it something you are working on uh, in better works, or it's your side research or whatever?
So it's a bit of both. So I got introduced to accessibility in my master's, and then I tried to bring it on in every job that I do. And of course, then I wanted to talk something about how AI and accessibility and UX are transitioning together, or how can they in future. So that's how my focus has been to AI and accessibility.
All right, great. So, ladies and gentlemen, the human AI loop, rethinking personalization and accessibility in user experience. All right, so do you have any slides, presentation, or whatever? You need to share it now.
Yeah, I'm
I
gonna
want to
try.
make sure we see it, and I will disappear to leave you stage.
Okay, let's see if I can share it. Okay, let me know what you see. Uh, are you
Looks
able?
like we see.
Okay, perfect. Then, and we'll just test if we can. I can, change slides and it's all visible.
Yeah, it's visible. It works perfect.
Perfect. Then I'll get started. Thank you so much.
Yep, I'm disappearing. The stage is yours.
Yep. Okay. So, let me start by let me start with a question that what if our products were accessible without anyone ever needing to ask for it, not through a special settings buried in a menu, not through a support ticket, not baked in some experience, but default, and also it's something invisible. Imagine someone with a low vision opening app and it automatically adjusts the text size based on their preference. And this can be also helpful. For example, a neurodivergent user opens an app and there's no toggling thing that is
I'm
disturbing them.
sorry. I'm sorry, Gauri, to interrupt you. Could you please make it full screen? Because that's what
Yeah.
we can't.
Okay, just a second. Um, I'm gonna try again.
Sorry about that, but we would
No
love
worries. Okay.
to see.
Uh, oh, okay. Just a second. I think.
Because
Uh,
I think later on you'll have some small fonts there and it will not be visible if it's not full screen.
yeah. Just a second. Does this work? Yeah.
You need to share
Oh
the
God.
screen first. No worries, it's okay.
Oh, God.
All
Okay.
right, now we have it and try to do it full screen. No?
Yeah. Is it? I think no. This is the average. This is the full screen view that it's letting me present. Let
All right,
me
all right, all right. No,
just.
that's better. That's better. I see like clear now.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay,
Now
so sorry about that. Yeah, I'm disappearing.
no worries, it's helpful. Especially talking about accessibility. This should be accessible. Okay, so I will try to continue. So as I was saying, I'll just start with the point that I was making is that the real accessibility does not is not reliant on the rules that we follow. It's basically something that by default is adaptive and does not a user does not need to ask for it. Now, thinking about it, before we deep dive into it, let's take a step back. Imagine landing on a website where the buttons are just out of reach. The text constrains your eyes, and or the interface behaves in the way that you can't predict. For over billion people, this is the world they are living with in every day. So 1.3 billion of people are living with some kind of disability. That is 15% of our population. In compare to it, over 97% of our websites are inaccessible. And with an average of just 15 seconds for us to capture a user's attention, inaccessibility doesn't mean inclusion, it means abandonment. Now, adding to the global disability market, this around holds around 8 trillion in spending power. So, accessibility isn't just a moral responsibility, it's a design and the business opportunity that we are kind of failing to meet right now. So, what has been said about accessibility, or how do we know accessibility till now as? Traditionally, it has been defined as designing for people with permanent disabilities, making content perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust, and especially following the WCAG guidelines. While this foundation is critical, it's still limiting. It often treats accessibility as a checklist and not as a user experience. Hi, I'm Gauri Thakur and I'm a senior UX designer at Butterworks. Today, I want to talk about how we can rethink accessibility, where it's more than just a static requirement, but a more dynamic and a personal attachment to our product, especially by the use of AI and how we can personalize it for each user experience. Going back a bit, my journey with accessibility just started with meeting an 85-year-old woman who wanted to learn tablet, and that's when I met her during my masters. And while working with her trying to learn tablet, I learned that the barriers she experienced with technology were nothing that I have ever seen. This changed my approach totally towards the digital world, and I just felt like this is not something that we all share equally, and that's the foundation of the talk that I'm here for. Today, we'll look into rethinking accessibility as well as personalization and the human AI loop that I have been talking about. As well as, while we do so, while we integrate AI into our system, how can we balance it? And at the end, I also want to talk about what is the future for UX and accessibility with this. So, starting off with um, accessibility and the current some of the current facts around it. The world is going through a digital revolution. AI, VR, smart devices, they are transforming how we live, work, and connect. But as this progress unfolds, there's one question: are we designing it for everyone? It is if the accessibility is more than a static need, then it's more of an individual need and a deep personal need. There's no single definition or a single thing that works for Heidi, who's trying to learn a technology, which will also work for Phil, who's visually impaired. And both of them deserve experiencing the digital world. The second thing that we I want to mention and I want to highlight is assistive tech, which is not that is not something that just works for a few. If you have ever tried to zoom in on a picture or tried to use voice navigation or tried to voice command your phone, that all is part of assistive technology. That just means that accessibility is not dumbing things down, it's actually opening things or having multiple things to reach at the same conclusion. It actually doesn't work for one group, but if you're making your product accessible, it works for everyone. The third thing is, as the advancement in health technology expands, the lifespan of the global population is aging. This means the growing number of people will experience some kind of disability, whether temporary or permanent. So it's now more than ever that we need to focus on accessibility need, and we need to ensure that this advancement don't leave anyone behind. When we talk about accessibility, the conversation often ends with following the WCAG guideline, as I mentioned. The reality is the compliance doesn't equal usability, because accessibility is not just a technical requirement, it's a human experience. According to UN, definition of disability itself is not impairment alone, but it's an interaction with a person with an inaccessible environment. In other words, disability is created by design barriers. That is where we as designers and technologists come in. Traditionally, WCAG guidelines are important, but they are static. Then they assume that consistency is equal to accessibility, but the user is dynamic. Therefore, we need to shift this definition and bring it on to the different stages like age, and we need to consider age, ability, environment, or even emotional state. So here's an opportunity. What if our interfaces could respond in real time? What if we built a system that understood contextual abilities, not just static accessibility? This is the point where AI comes in the picture, not just replacing accessibility pictures, but personalizing and adapting them for a scale in real time. Let's shift from designing from one, but designing experiences that fit individual needs, whereas one size fits for all. Artificial intelligence offers the transformative potential that no longer is just a backend tool, it can be an active ally in our process. Think of it as in a way that a user repeatedly enhances text. AI can learn and adjust itself with font size automatically. If someone consistently prefers the voice navigation, maybe it can adjust according to that. And one of the most obvious example for this is how we use our phone in shadow versus going out, and the brightness is adaptive from interpreting gestures, speech, fatigue, distraction. Multimodal AI can actually reduce the friction between the digital inclusion. This is how we move from accessibility as a compliance to accessibility as compassionate contextual journal. When I mean is to make AI an active part of our process and use it for adaptive accessibility. I can so let's start let's bring all of these things together. We have talked about AI, we have talked about accessibility, but this is the heart of it, the human AI loop. I want to be clear that this is not about AI replacing designer. It's about AI working with us, supporting us, learning from us. It's like a collaboration and not a competition. When we talk about accessibility, AI has this incredible potential to move us past the statistic definitions. Instead of waiting for months or years to adapt, AI lets us respond to users in real time based on their behavior, performance, or emotional state. But to be really effective, it needs us, it needs the human judgment, our values, our empathy. Because it can't actually understand the lived experience. It doesn't know what dignity feels like or other of the human emotions. This is where the loop comes in. It's not the one way handoff, but it's like a conversation, a user interaction. AI learns and resurfaces the insight. We as designers interpret those signals and reimagine the experience. Then we test, user interacts, and the loop continues. Over the time, this loop gets smarter, more human, more adaptive. That's how we stop designing for the average user, and that's how we start designing for a using a learned trained AI system for the average real people. And that we can still do it at scale by using the AI. Now we are currently standing at the year we are at, or the generation we are in. We are currently standing at a turning point of everything. The three key forces are colliding right now. Generative AI is more available than ever. We have tools to tailor the experience in real time. Laws are already enforcing, like we have just started, but we are still have an EU AI Act or Section 508 nudging us towards ethical inclusive design by default. And mostly people expectation have changed over the years. They want technology that understand their needs, respond with nuance, feels intuitive and not invasive. Adaptive accessibility is using AI to sense, respond, and adjust in real time, not based on label or diagnosis, but actual behavior and context. People need technology to understand them and then iterate its behavior on individually according to them. Maybe someone's recovering from an eye strain and wants the mobile light to be dim automatically. And what if that UI could predict this or adjust it because of their patterns or the preferred thing? This is not futuristic, it's already happening. AI is already bridging this gap. Systems are fluid with the human experience. Let's treat AI more than the static definition that we always had. It can be more of a conversation with a user and the interfaces, guided by empathy and intelligence at the core. Now, I want to bring this discussion to life. Let's see four of the compelling examples where AI has been actively transforming accessibility. The first example is, and I would urge everyone to actually check this out, is basically Be My Eyes, which is an app basically which helps visually impaired people. They have actually integrated the OpenAI GPT-4, which in real time gives a visually impaired person a description of their environment once the picture is clicked. Now imagine a person using this app in a Starbucks, and they can actually do all of their tasks in independence and reducing reliance on human volunteers. The second app is basically second one of the second product is Livecart, which is a commerce platform This setups that it has, it allows for a real-time adaptation of a user interface based on the user interactions itself. So it would train itself and it would suggest voice navigation, reducing cognitive load or layout changes based on the training that we give him. One more such app is basically VoiceIt. VoiceIt is a AI-driven speech recognition tool that helps people with speech impairment. It adapts with users' unique speech pattern over time and then translates it to a normal, understandable speech. This tool enhances communication for users who have had difficulty understanding in a traditional speech patterns. The fourth one is something that we might be all familiar with, which is Apple's AI based accessibility feature. Apple has been using this in iOS 18, where it has the ability to eye tracking capabilities for devices that can help with improved speech recognition as well as pattern, haptic, and feedback for music. These features demonstrate the commitment we have towards inclusivity. And these examples illustrate how AI is not just a tool but a transformative force in creating inclusive and adaptive environment for all. Now, let's talk about how AI can be used today, or how, as designers, we can start today itself. So, the first step itself is that it starts with us. We need to bring out the human values at the center of everything. Ask what do users need emotionally and functionally. Use inclusive research, empathy mapping to get there, and make sure that data represents all of the genre that we need to cover. If it's hard, then use AI to stimulate this diverse needs. The second thing is to co-design with people who face this barrier. Their feedback isn't just helpful, but it's foundation to building systems that adapt well. Now we that this is where we bring in AI in our daily use. Let AI do its job, spot patterns that we might miss. If a user keeps enlarging text or switching between inputs, the system should adapt intuitively. Step 4 is to design adaptive interfaces or flexible layout faster using AI. Make it like a loop. Use tools like ChatGPT, Vision API, and test faster, iterate faster. This can help us reduce the development time and also get us more stimulated experiences using AI stimulation tool. The best part about this is that we can apply it right now, and this might be actually a stepping stone towards creating more accessible and AI generated components. Some of the things that I want to leave you with is how these are some of the tools, toolkits, and frameworks that can be used, or I would urge everyone to check once you are trying to explore this topic. The Microsoft Azure AI is like a studio of all the AI things that we can use for integrating with our product to switch to real time captioning and image recognition. The Intel's open source AI reference kit is a entire kit good to guide us using AI and running it across various platforms. Read Speaker AI is something very similar to Microsoft Azure AI, which helps people with learning disability or visual impairment to automatically have real time audio narration of all the apps. Lastly, Microsoft Inclusive Design Toolkit. This offers principles and activities to help designers to create products that are accessible for everyone. Along with this, Microsoft and around 20 more, there are 20 more open source design system like Google, IBM, Adobe, and Salesforce, which have accessibility built into their design system, which are easily accessible and we can study it and incorporate it in our design today. As we integrate AI into it, we have to hit a pause and consider the risk. Because if we are not intentional, AI can just be as easy and reinforcing barriers as it can break them. First of all, let's talk about the biases. AI learns from the data we feed it. So we have to be sure that it has the data of all the users that we want to interpret. Secondly, privacy. When AI adapts to a user behavior, it often means tracking and patterns. As designer, we must ask and respect the user's need and allow the control over to users rather than AI. And lastly, AI can assist, but it cannot empathize. That's when UX designer or engineers must stay in loop. where we are the one responsible for ensuring that everyone is not just having AI powered decision, but AI powered decision with the human values. So yes, AI is powerful. It's like a silver bullet. It's a tool. It needing, but it needs the thoughtful, ethical hands to shape and bring the meaningful outcomes. When we design for difference and not disabilities, we unlock better experiences for everyone. Adaptive context aware system don't only help those in diagnosed imperative needs, but it helps everyone like aging adults, multilingual users, healing from injuries, or even sleep deprived person at 2 a.m. trying to navigate their phone with one hand. Accessibility isn't just a feature, it's a design strategy, one that fuels everyone, and it's just beyond just the concept of inclusion, but I think it derives innovation. The goal isn't to work around barriers, it's to dissolve them. When interface adapts to you, accessibility becomes ambient. Not a layer added, but something woven at the core. That's why it's important to have this conscious at every step. And this can be faster and more integrated if we use AI. As we close, I want to leave you with this. Accessibility doesn't mean reinventing something overnight. Start simple. Try deciding trees or the group user preferences. Add toggles. Use AI to generate AI alternative text or start small. You don't need to be like a machine learning expert to build an inclusive system. You just need empathy at the core of it. There might be three simple questions that you start with. What barriers do your user face? What signals can AI adapt in real time? And most importantly, how do we keep the user's control in every step? That's the human AI loop, and that's where inclusive design scales. In 5 years, adaptive interfaces won't be a luxury, they will be a norm. The organization that are designing with empathy, embraced AI, and honoring this difference are not just designing for disability, they are designing for future. Let's stop seeing accessibility as an obligation. Let's start seeing it as a way of innovation. And that is how I would leave you with. And thank you so much. And do reach out to me for any questions.
Yes, of course. I'm sure. Like, yeah. All right. So I took out the presentation, and thank you very much for this presentation. I feel like you guys who work with accessibility, you leverage AI. I would say even the most of all designers or all topics or other spheres, because like it's some. I feel like this sphere has improvements with AI the most.
It is. See, there are two parts to it. One, half of the designers who are also trying to work around accessibility face this resource barrier. That's when AI is really helpful, because even though we could not stimulate the effect of a user, visually impaired user, we can still use AI to simulate that effect. So that is definitely helpful. That's one part of it. And of course, as designers, now more than ever, it's very helpful to get ChatGPT or Cloud AI just to tell us like what are these barriers, that what are something like colors that I don't have that impairment, but someone with a red and green impairment might so not see on the screen. So it's now more than ever, I think, that we can start or actually
Great.
get more ahead for accessibility.
Thank you very much. And we also have we also have Sashin on our backstage. Yes. Hello, brother. How are you? Yeah, you're muted.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. How are you?
Hey, doing good.
Good. Great. Great. Thank you for joining. And we have some questions to you guys. And why don't we just start from this one? Gauri, how do
Hmm.
you integrate AI accessibility insight into design team sprints? How to avoid slowing down?
Um, so this is a great question, and I would say that of course, if you're doing a design sprint, and if you're doing especially a 5 days or a very quick sprint, um, of course, this accessibility right now is very overlooked. It's often thought is like an afterthought. What I would recommend is from day one, as you're doing your user research, make it a part of it. So it start from user research itself, as well as once you're done with user research, you might be creating some low fidelity prototype. Try a stimulated effect on it. Try using AI stimulated techniques, or make train your chat gpt that this is your user base and this is some of the impairment they are working with. Test it out, see, just send it an image and see if they can detect some color contrast there, or they can detect any discoloration or anything like that, or is everything legible. So maybe start from there, integrate it in every step that you have. And I would also recommend checking out all the open, easily free available AI sources, which are also integrated on Figma itself. So you don't even need to switch out any of the platforms to do so.
Great. Thank you very much for this answer. And next question goes to you, Sachin. For a good user experience in a light app, which features should always be native, not web? Mhm.
Yeah. So when we are building a hybrid app, I would say those experiences which you would like to offer the users offline, say for example, your splash page, your login page, uh, those should be built native because you cannot show a slower experience for your first page to be loaded from the web, which takes time. So that won't be a good experience. Two, it is always better to have native experience for the use cases where you have to deal with uh, native permissions or biometrics, things like that, especially when you deal with variety of devices like between iOS and Android. So going through the web approach, you may have limited access to some native features. So those should be built native. And even otherwise, any other feature which won't take like maybe less than a few hundred, a few like 50 kilobytes or something, you are better off building native. But otherwise, always go for the fully a web app driven approach, is what I would say.
That's quite clear. Yeah, thank you very much. Going back to you, Gauri. How do you ensure AI-driven personalization doesn't unintentionally reinforce bad assumptions or biases? Uh-huh.
Yeah. So this is again interesting. So when I mean AI-driven personalization, it also means that assistive technology. It's basically this personalization is different ways to get to a same conclusion. What I mean is what is accessible for one person does not limit the other person or does not recreate that barriers, but it actually works for all. But if you're still worried that maybe you're too focused in user research on just making it accessible rather than functional, that is where you're equal, or when you include everyone in user research, that's when this does not happen. If you're just worried that, oh, maybe I'm just designing for this old age group rather than everyone, this is where you give yourself this, you go back to it and you have more minds to it, and just have that question if you're considering everyone and not just one specific user. And that is how the accessibility problem itself started. Coming to the AI driven personalization, I am not saying that use AI as your whole and soul guide. What I am saying is use it first, do the human part to it. We have to control AI to get to the conclusion that we need and are right. So you have to get the right users that you have, and that data should train your AI, not the other way around, that by default we are using the data that AI has recovered from somewhere. So that
Right.
human factor has always gonna be there.
When it's us against them, better be us, right?
I was just saying that we can work together to get fast conclusions.
Let's not do it us against them, right? All right, let's go. As a designer, how can I help keep the app small without making it look bad or losing our brand?
So that's a good question. So one main focus that we have to keep in mind is that, so here you're going to build a mix of light and web and native experience if you're going for a web-based hyper approach. So this would mean that the way you design the elements on your native screens as well as in your HTML, so those should look very identical so that the users actually do not feel a distinction between the native and web views. So that is one primary consideration that you have to keep in mind. Two is that we should also give an impression to the users that the experience that you are offering to the users is lighter, and faster and lighter. So that should also reflect in your design. So you may not actually go for like very darker themes. You might offer them with lighter variations of your brand colors to give the perception to the users that, hey, we are offering something different. And it also gives the impression that it's something lightweight and also simulates a belief in the user that it's also faster than the regular version of the app. So these are some key considerations that you have in mind.
Yeah. That's cool. Thank you very much. And going next, Gauri, how do you ensure AI adaptations like changing font size or layout don't conflict with brand guidelines and doesn't ruin the visual consistency? Huh.
Okay. So that's when the design system comes in place. So as designer, we have that freedom to design system and then test it out. For example, a button. Okay, so a button, if we are designing it in our system, we can create 5 variation for its sizes. So even when you have the biggest size possible on someone's screen, we make sure that it doesn't harm or it doesn't come in contact or disturbs the other text pattern. So I would recommend for this AI adaptation to not conflict with brand guidelines. I would recommend creating a accessible design system that works by default for all the screen sizes, font sizes, for layouts. And of course, I'm not saying that your if if you don't have it right now, we can also work with responsive design. So a lot of time, what we have designed works for all the desktop screen. I'm saying the same pattern would work if we have the good and accessible design system itself.
Thank you very much. And the last question I'm shooting here in our conversation: how do we make web parts of Light app feel just like the native parts of the user for the user? Sorry. You are muted, brother, I guess.
Sorry, yeah.
Yep.
So this is a very tricky aspect. However you try to build a native app using web, uh, you kind of the users kind of get an experience of like get a non-native experience, but there are ways to limit it. So one, as I said before, okay, keep the design shifts very minimal. Two, the most important thing is maintaining your cache properly. So there are two important aspects that we can. So one is maintaining the cache. Second part is prefetch. So let's say I'm on a page one, right? So while I'm scrolling to the page, so I can actually make use of service workers to prefetch another page, which user can usually go to. So it will be in my secondary cache. And whenever user clicks on the next tab, so it just loads immediately like you have in a native app. So that way it's not just faster, but also mimics the impression of a native app to a great extent. Else, if we are really constrained that you should have a fully native driven approach to build a light app, we should always go through a server driven UI approach where the server always sends you a UI tree, and on the client side, you will have parsers which will parse that UI tree into native views. So that's the approach to go to keep everything in native with a lightweight app. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was very engineering answer to this question, but still, thank you very much for these hints, and it's still great. Thank you very much for this conversation. I got no questions to you guys. Let me check again. Maybe we had something. Yeah. Right. That's really it. Thank you. That was really technical, but still very productive and beneficial for all. Thank you for joining and sharing your energy with the audience. And I enjoyed our conversation. Have a nice day.
Same
Thank
to
you so
you,
much
Ed.
for
Yeah,
this
thank you so much.
portion.
Bye.
Bye bye. Okay, dear audience, the first day of AI. No, it's not AI. It's UI UX Global Summit Design Day. Let's say this way is over. We had great 6 topics. We had 2 Q&A conversations and tons of insights. I hope I have, and lots of fun actually. I love meeting people, chatting to know about what they digging in, how everything goes. So today, that's it for today. Tomorrow we'll have let me see, 9 more topics, mostly focused on AI in software, in designing software. So yeah, if you still don't have any tickets, please use promo code live to give you 20% off the price. And we, by the way, keeping this price not too high this year. So I hope to see you tomorrow. And yeah, thank you very much. See you.